In the far reaches of the Andromeda Galaxy, a species known as the Threxians prided themselves on their dominion over various worlds. Renowned for their advanced technology and intellectual prowess, they had mastered the art of conquest, subjugating countless civilizations across the cosmos. Their greatest boast, however, was their mastery of predatory species, which they cultivated to serve as elite combat units in their militaristic campaigns. The Threxians held a grand assembly in their capital city, Zethrax, a colossal structure of shimmering metals and radiant crystals. Here, the leaders gathered to share tales of their most formidable beast creatures that struck fear into the hearts of their enemies. Admiral Krixar stood before a holographic display, projecting images of their finest warriors. The Serac, a giant, winged predator that could turn the tides of battle with its fiery breath. The Thomer, a razor-clawed behemoth that could crush armored units with a single swipe. And the Verolax, a serpentine creature capable of stealthily infiltrating enemy lines and dispatching foes with lethal precision. "Behold," Krixar boomed, his voice echoing through the grand hall. "These are our powerful troops, unmatched in the galaxy, each one trained for carnage, each one loyal to the Threxian cause." The crowd erupted in cheers, their pride palpable as they envisioned their army sweeping across the stars. Yet amidst the celebration, a young Threxian named Xyler stood back, his mind racing. He had always been curious about life beyond their conquests and felt a strange tug toward the unexplored realms of the universe. "Admiral," Xyler finally spoke up, his voice barely breaking through the jubilant din. "What if there are creatures we haven't encountered yet? Creatures that could rival even our greatest predators?" The hall fell silent, and Krixar turned his gaze toward Xyler, his eyes narrowing. "We are the apex of creation, young one. Our power is unrivaled." But Xyler wasn't deterred. He had heard whispers of a distant planet, one filled with exotic life forms that had never faced Threxian might. "What about Earth?" he suggested. "I've heard tales of its insect creatures small yet formidable. We should investigate." Laughter erupted again, but this time it was tinged with condescension. "Insects? We'll not waste our resources on tiny pests," Krixar dismissed, waving a hand dismissively. But Xyler felt an ember of determination ignite within him. Weeks passed, and Xyler discreetly assembled a small reconnaissance team. He believed that if he could document these supposed insects and their capabilities, he could prove their worth, and perhaps even unearth a new kind of warfare. As their ship, the Thalax, sliced through the void of space, Xyler's heart raced. The shimmering blue-green planet of Earth soon filled the viewscreen. With its diverse ecosystems and lush landscapes, it seemed alive in ways the Threxians had not anticipated. They landed discreetly in a remote forest, far from human eyes. Equipped with specialized gear to analyze life forms, the team set out, guided by Xyler's resolve. They traversed through towering trees, listening to the symphony of nature. Hours turned into days as they recorded everything from towering mammals to vibrant birds, but it was the insects that fascinated them most. Xyler's team first encountered a colony of fire ants. Watching them work together to build their underground fortress, he was struck by their organization and discipline. "Look at them," he exclaimed, crouching low. "Each ant has a role, working in perfect harmony." His companions, initially skeptical, observed the ants' intricate movements. "But they're so small," one remarked. "How can they be considered powerful?" "Power is not always about size," Xyler replied. "It's about effectiveness, strategy. Let's see how they respond to threats." Moments later, a larger creature, a hungry spider, invaded their territory. The fire ants sprang into action, coordinating an assault that overwhelmed the spider with sheer numbers. Xyler's eyes widened as they swarmed, biting and defending their home with fierce determination. The spider retreated, leaving behind a testament to the ants' resilience. "This is merely a glimpse," Xyler urged his team. "Let's move deeper into their world." Days turned into weeks as they cataloged more species. The Threxians observed the hunting tactics of dragonflies, the social structures of bees, and the ferocity of wasps. Each encounter chipped away at their initial arrogance, revealing a complex web of life that thrived on collaboration and survival instinct. One afternoon, Xyler stumbled upon a clearing where a colony of leafcutter ants was meticulously carving pieces from leaves, transporting them to their underground chambers. They were industrious and organized, working in teams to gather resources efficiently. "Imagine if we harnessed such efficiency," he murmured. "In war, they could act as a unit, overwhelming any adversary." His thoughts raced with possibilities. Suddenly, a shadow fell over the clearing. A massive bird swooped down, targeting the ants. Xyler gasped, anticipating the carnage. But instead of chaos, he witnessed an astonishing display. The ants instantly shifted tactics, forming a protective ball around their queen. They defended her at all costs, sacrificing themselves in a bid to save their leader. "What bravery!" one Threxian exclaimed. "They prioritized their own." Xyler felt a rush of inspiration. This isn't just about individual strength. It's about unity and sacrifice. These insects are masters of their domain. Determined to understand their true capabilities, Xyler decided to study the insects more closely. He learned their behaviors, their strategies, and their social structures, all while noting their adaptability in the face of danger. Each day brought new revelations, and he began to wonder what it would be like if the Threxians could learn from them. After weeks of research, Xyler proposed an idea to his team. "What if we train a battalion of these insects? We could create an elite force that harnesses their strengths." His comrades exchanged skeptical glances. "Train insects? They're just pests." "Pests?" Xyler echoed, his frustration boiling. "They are warriors in their own right. Imagine using their numbers and strategies to overwhelm our enemies. We could develop a new type of warfare." As they debated, Xyler had a sudden epiphany. "Let's create an experiment. We can build a controlled environment to study their interactions and see if we can enhance their capabilities." They gathered materials from the ship, constructing a makeshift habitat to observe and interact with the insects. Over the next few weeks, they modified the habitat, introducing various challenges: predators, food scarcity, and environmental changes to see how the insects adapted. To their astonishment, the insects demonstrated remarkable resilience. The ants learned to work together even more efficiently, using tactics that reminded Xyler of Threxian warfare strategies. They fortified their defenses against predators and optimized their foraging techniques, impressing the entire team. "We could integrate their methods into our combat training," Xyler proposed, excitement coursing through him. "Imagine a Threxian army moving like these insects, adapting to any battlefield." At last, their experiment attracted the attention of Crixar, who had been monitoring their activities from afar. Intrigued by the reports of success, he decided to visit the team. As he arrived, Xyler stood proudly beside the habitat, ready to showcase their findings. "What is this, Xyler?" Crixar demanded, observing the bustling colony within the makeshift habitat. "Admiral, these are Earth's insects. They possess remarkable qualities that could revolutionize our combat strategies. They embody resilience, teamwork, and adaptability." Crixar raised an eyebrow, his skepticism evident. "And you believe these creatures could stand against our powerful troops?" "Absolutely," Xyler replied, his voice steady. "Let me demonstrate." He activated a simulation that replicated a Threxian assault on an insect colony. The team watched as the ants sprang into action, responding to the threat with flawless coordination. To Crixar's surprise, the insects executed maneuvers that rivaled Threxian tactics. They used their numbers to outflank the simulated attackers, employing guerrilla tactics that left the Threxian forces baffled. "Extraordinary," Crixar muttered, his arrogance beginning to wane. "But can they withstand real Threxian might?" Determined to prove their worth, Xyler proposed a bold idea: to create a hybrid unit. They would integrate Threxian technology with the instincts of the insects. With Crixar's reluctant approval, they began their ambitious project. Months passed as they combined their knowledge of Threxian biology with the inherent traits of the insects. They developed specialized armor for the ants, enhanced their communication systems, and even genetically modified a few traits to bolster their resilience and combat effectiveness. Finally, the day arrived for the first trial run of the hybrid unit. The Threxians gathered in a vast arena, excitement electrifying the air. Xyler stood at the forefront, feeling a mixture of pride and trepidation. The gates opened, and the modified ants surged forward, their movements coordinated and precise. They displayed the ferocity and tactical awareness that Xyler had envisioned. As they engaged in simulated combat against Threxian droids, the outcome was nothing short of astonishing. The arena erupted with cheers as the Threxians witnessed the spectacle unfold. Xyler's heart swelled with pride, but he knew this was just the beginning. As the test progressed, it became clear that the modified ants were more than just tools. They were soldiers in their own right, capable of executing complex maneuvers and adapting to evolving combat scenarios. Xyler watched as they formed tactical formations, executing flanking maneuvers that caught the droids off guard. Crixar, who had initially approached the experiment with skepticism, began to lean forward, his expression shifting from disbelief to intrigue. "They're using the terrain to their advantage," he noted, a hint of respect creeping into his voice. The simulation ended with a resounding victory for the hybrid unit. The Threxian crowd erupted in applause, many of them awestruck by the display of coordination and intelligence displayed by the tiny warriors. Crixar turned to Xyler, the hint of a smile breaking through his usually stern demeanor. "Perhaps you were right, after all." "Thank you, Admiral," Xyler replied, feeling a mix of relief and excitement. "This is just the start. We can continue to enhance their capabilities and expand our understanding of Earth's ecosystem." As the days turned into weeks, the Threxians focused on training and refining their insect troops. The once dismissed insects were now integrated into the Threxian military. In tandem with their elite warriors, the hybrid units became known as the Miniature Legion, a title that signified both their stature and their newfound importance in Threxian strategy. Word of their success spread quickly through Zethrax. The Miniature Legion was now part of the Threxian arsenal, utilized in skirmishes and even large-scale invasions. Xyler often stood on the sidelines, proud to see his vision come to fruition. But he remained vigilant, knowing that their journey was far from over. One fateful day, an urgent transmission interrupted their training sessions. An unknown fleet had been spotted on the fringes of Threxian territory, an aggressive, marauding species known as the Caraxes, renowned for their brutality and disregard for other life forms. The Caraxes had conquered world after world, leaving only ashes in their wake. Now they were heading toward Earth, drawn by reports of the Threxian presence. "Prepare for battle," Crixar barked, his demeanor shifting into that of a seasoned commander. "We cannot allow them to breach our defenses or threaten our newfound assets." Xyler felt a mixture of fear and excitement. This was the moment he had anticipated, an opportunity to prove the Miniature Legion's worth on a real battlefield. He quickly gathered his research team and prepared the insects for combat. As the Threxian fleet engaged the Caraxian ships in a chaotic dogfight among the stars, Xyler mobilized his hybrid units, instructing them to launch from the Thalax and join the fray. He watched as the Miniature Legion deployed in a coordinated formation, their tiny figures swarming out of the ship like a cloud of relentless fury. The battlefield raged around them, with Threxian ships unleashing devastating firepower against the Caraxes. The sheer scale of the conflict was staggering. Massive Caraxian dreadnoughts loomed overhead, spewing torrents of energy that incinerated anything in their path. Yet, in the midst of the chaos, Xyler focused on the ground operation. As the Miniature Legion engaged in guerrilla warfare tactics, they targeted vulnerable points on the Caraxian ships. Their small size allowed them to slip through the cracks and access critical systems. Xyler directed them with precision, watching as the ants navigated their surroundings with an intelligence that amazed him. "Cut the power to their weapon systems," he commanded, observing the Miniature Legion swarm toward a Caraxian energy conduit. The ants moved with purpose, leveraging their coordinated movements to create chaos within the enemy ship. Directing the assault, "Now," Xyler shouted, feeling a surge of adrenaline as he witnessed the results. The Coraxian dreadnought shuddered, a pulse of energy cascading from the point of attack. The ship's weapon systems faltered, unable to respond to the Threxian onslaught. The battle continued to unfold, and despite the overwhelming firepower of the Caraxes, the Miniature Legion provided crucial support. They disrupted supply lines, sabotaged critical systems, and wreaked havoc within the enemy ranks. The Threxians began to take notice of the insect's effectiveness, their initial skepticism rapidly fading. "Unbelievable!" Krixar exclaimed as he observed the battle from the command ship. "They are turning the tide." Xyler couldn't help but smile, but he knew they couldn't afford to celebrate just yet. The Coraxes were relentless, and their tactics were shifting. It became clear that they were adapting to the chaos, beginning to counter the attacks of the Miniature Legion. Suddenly, a massive Coraxian warlord ship emerged from the fray, its hull bristling with weaponry. This was no ordinary ship. It was a mobile fortress designed to absorb and return fire with devastating accuracy. Xyler felt a chill run down his spine as the ship's targeting systems locked onto the Thalax. "Xyler, we need to fall back," one of his teammates urged, anxiety etched across their features. "No, we can't abandon them now," Xyler shouted, his conviction firm. "We need to distract that warlord and buy our forces time." Rallying the Miniature Legion, he devised a plan. They would launch a direct assault on the warlord's critical systems, using their agility and intelligence to exploit its vulnerabilities. With a surge of resolve, he ordered the ants into formation, directing them toward the warlord's ship. The hybrid units swarmed toward the behemoth, darting through its defenses like a living wave. But as they approached, they were met with fierce resistance. Coraxian drones poured out of the ship, intent on exterminating the tiny invaders. Xyler's heart raced as he directed the ants to split into smaller groups, focusing on evasion and adaptability. "Formations, use the terrain. We can outsmart them." The Miniature Legion responded with instinctual brilliance, weaving between the drones, employing feints and ambush tactics to keep the Caraxes off balance. As they approached the warlord's hull, they targeted exposed joints and energy conduits, burrowing into the ship's defenses. Yet, the Caraxes were brutal and relentless. Xyler watched in horror as a squad of ants was overwhelmed by a swarm of drones, their sacrifice stoking the fires of his determination. "We must push through," he shouted, his voice ringing with urgency. As the battle escalated, the Threxian fleet began to falter. The Coraxian warlord had turned its attention to the larger ships, raining destruction upon them. Xyler felt the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. He had to succeed, not just for the sake of the Miniature Legion, but for the entire Threxian fleet. "Now, focus on their command center," Xyler commanded, spotting a weak point on the warlord's ship. "If we can disable their leadership, we can disrupt their entire operation." The Miniature Legion surged forward, relentless in their assault. They coordinated their movements, forming a concentrated wave aimed at the ship's command center. As they penetrated the defenses, the energy surrounding them crackled with tension. Inside the command center, the Coraxians realized the threat posed by the ants, scrambling to protect their vital systems. But it was too late. The Miniature Legion, emboldened by their unity and resolve, overwhelmed the command center with ferocity. They flooded the area, cutting through the Coraxian defenses. Xyler felt a surge of triumph as the warlord's ship began to tremble, systems failing as chaos reigned. With one final push, the ants unleashed a devastating strike on the control panel, plunging the warlord's ship into disarray. "Direct hit," Krixar shouted over the comms, exhilaration lacing his voice. "The Caraxes are losing their command structure." The tide began to shift. As the warlord's ship faltered, the Coraxian forces scattered, their coordination unraveling. Threxian ships pressed the advantage, launching a counteroffensive that turned the once overwhelming Coraxian fleet into disarray. Xyler watched in awe as the Miniature Legion continued to swarm over the warlord's ship, determined to finish what they had started. As they took down critical systems one by one, He felt a swell of pride for these once dismissed creatures who had risen to become formidable warriors. Finally, with a catastrophic explosion, the warlord ship disintegrated, a massive blast echoing through space. The remaining Caraxian forces turned and fled, chaos engulfing their retreat. The arena erupted in cheers, and Xyler felt a rush of exhilaration. The miniature legion had not only survived, but had thrived against insurmountable odds. They had proven their worth, changing the course of the battle and solidifying their place within the Threxian military. In the aftermath, as the fleet regrouped, Krixar approached Xyler, a newfound respect in his eyes. "You've done the impossible, Xyler. The miniature legion is no longer just an experiment. They are a vital part of our forces." Xyler beamed, but his thoughts drifted back to the insects. They had taught him invaluable lessons about resilience, unity, and adaptability. Xyler took a moment to collect his thoughts, feeling the weight of their shared experience. "Admiral, we must continue to learn from them. Their strategies are unlike anything we've seen. If we're to remain the apex predators of the galaxy, we need to embrace the lessons these insects have to offer." Krixar nodded, his expression contemplative. "You're right. This battle has shown us that power does not merely stem from size or technology, but from understanding and adaptation. We must harness these insights to further our dominance." With the Caraxes driven back, the Threxian fleet returned to Zethrax, their spirits high. The miniature legion was heralded as heroes, their exploits praised across the galaxy. Yet, amidst the celebrations, Xyler found himself deep in thought. The victory had been significant, but it was only one battle in an endless war. He understood that their newfound allies, the insects, were not just tools for warfare. They were a reminder of the interconnectedness of life and the delicate balance that governed the universe. In the following weeks, Xyler dedicated himself to further research, delving into Earth's vast array of insects. He organized a series of training sessions, allowing Threxian soldiers to interact with the miniature legion and learn from their tactics. The insects displayed a remarkable ability to adapt, and Xyler made sure his team was ready to document every interaction. One afternoon, while observing a new batch of recruits training with the ants, Xyler noticed something fascinating. The soldiers were beginning to mimic the ants' behaviors, learning to work together as a unit. The training sessions transformed into elaborate strategies, blending Threxian techniques with insect-like adaptability. "Look at them," Xyler exclaimed to his team. "They're starting to think like the insects. This is the beginning of a new era for our military." As the weeks progressed, Xyler's vision began to take shape. The Threxians incorporated insect strategies into their standard training regimen, using the miniature legion as a template for collaboration and adaptability. They began to create hybrid units of their own, merging Threxian technology with the natural instincts of the insects. But not everyone was convinced. A faction of Threxians, still skeptical of the insects' true potential, voiced their concerns. They argued that relying too heavily on the miniature legion could lead to complacency, a dangerous path for a species that had built its empire on strength and superiority. "Xyler, your enthusiasm is commendable," a high-ranking officer named General Targan said during a council meeting, his tone critical. "But let's not forget the nature of our enemies. The Caraxes are not the only threat. We must maintain our edge." Xyler listened carefully, his mind racing. "General, I understand your concerns, but we're missing the bigger picture. We're not just adopting their strategies, we're evolving. Our enemies are learning too. If we stick to outdated methods, we risk becoming obsolete." Targan scowled but remained silent, the tension palpable in the room. Xyler continued, "Imagine a future where our soldiers operate with the instincts of these insects, adaptable and agile. We could become unstoppable." Despite the opposition, Xyler pressed on, and over time, he gained support from others who recognized the potential in his ideas. They initiated a series of experiments designed to further integrate Threxian and insect capabilities. The miniature legion's success had opened new avenues for exploration, and the research teams were eager to uncover more. As the months passed, the training evolved. The Threxians developed tactics that combined their advanced weaponry with the ants' strategies. They created specialized units that mirrored the organization of insect colonies, allowing them to operate in unison with a miniature legion. The outcomes were extraordinary, with simulations revealing that these new hybrid tactics outperformed traditional methods. Yet, as they celebrated these advancements, a shadow loomed on the horizon. Reports began to filter in from distant colonies about unusual activity among the Caraxes. Whispers of a new leader, one who was rallying the fragmented forces, reached Zithrax. This new warlord was said to be unlike any they had faced before: intelligent, strategic, and relentless. "General Targan is right about one thing," Xyler said during a council meeting as he reviewed the reports. "We need to be prepared for whatever comes next. This new Caraxian leader will not take our victories lightly. We have to outmaneuver them." The room filled with murmurs of agreement and concern. "What are you suggesting, Xyler?" Crixar asked, his brow furrowed in thought. "We should send reconnaissance teams to gather intelligence on this new warlord," Xyler proposed. "And we need to continue training our troops with the miniature legion. The more we learn, the better prepared we will be." Crixar nodded, acknowledging the wisdom in Xyler's words. "Very well. We'll mobilize our scouts and double our training sessions with the miniature legion. We cannot afford to be caught off guard." As the preparations unfolded, Xyler took it upon himself to lead one of the reconnaissance teams. He understood that knowledge was power, and first-hand experience would provide invaluable insights into their enemy. Alongside a small group of elite Threxian soldiers, he set off toward the outer reaches of Caraxian territory. The journey was tense, filled with the weight of uncertainty. As they navigated through asteroid fields and avoided patrols, Xyler's mind raced with the possibilities of what they might encounter. He felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation, aware that the balance of power could shift with this mission. After several days of careful maneuvering, they approached a Caraxian stronghold, a fortress built into a desolate planet. The sight was both imposing and unsettling, with dark ships hovering in the atmosphere and armed sentinels patrolling the perimeter. Xyler and his team established a hidden vantage point, setting up their observation equipment. As they began gathering intel, Xyler's heart raced. They watched as Caraxian soldiers trained, their movements swift and precise. But what truly captivated Xyler was the presence of a figure that commanded attention: an imposing Caraxian warlord, larger and more formidable than any they had encountered before. "Look at that," one of his team members whispered, pointing at the warlord. "He's orchestrating their training." Xyler's gaze narrowed as he observed the warlord's strategies. The Caraxians weren't just training, they were evolving. This new leader was implementing tactics that mirrored some of the strategies they had developed using the miniature legion. It was a stark reminder that their enemies were learning from the same battles. "We need to get this information back to Zithrax," Xyler instructed, a sense of urgency swelling within him. "If they're adapting to our methods, we must rethink our approach." They began to gather data, documenting everything: the warlord's movements, the soldiers' training routines, and the defenses of the stronghold. As the sun set on the horizon, they knew it was time to return. But just as they prepared to leave, a series of alarms blared throughout the fortress. "What's happening?" Xyler exclaimed, adrenaline surging through him. A Caraxian patrol had spotted their hidden position. "We need to move," another soldier shouted, scrambling to gather equipment. As they made a hasty retreat, Xyler felt a wave of panic wash over him. They dashed through the rocky terrain, pursued by Caraxian sentinels. Each heartbeat echoed in his ears, and he focused on the mission: returning home with the intelligence that could save them. "Split up," he commanded. "We'll regroup at the rendezvous point." The team scattered, each member relying on their training to evade capture. Xyler ran, his heart pounding, adrenaline fueling his escape. He ducked behind boulders and weaved through crags, the sounds of pursuit growing louder behind him. But just as he thought he was safe, a Caraxian drone swooped low, scanning the area. Xyler cursed under his breath, knowing he had to act fast. With a quick decision, he dropped into a nearby ravine, hoping to evade the drone's sensors. He lay still, breathless, as the drone passed overhead. Minutes felt like hours, but finally, he risked a glance. The coast was clear. Gathering himself, he started to climb back up to the surface. Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice through his comms. "Zyler, are you there? We're regrouping at the rendezvous point." "I'm here," he replied, relieved to hear his teammates' voices. "I'll be there shortly. I have vital intel." "Be careful," the voice warned. "The Caraxian forces are on high alert." Zyler nodded, even though they couldn't see him. He pressed on, navigating through the rocky terrain until he reached the rendezvous point. His team was already waiting, breathless but safe. "What did you gather?" one of his teammates asked, urgency in their tone. Zyler quickly relayed the information, detailing the warlord's training strategies and the adaptations he had observed. "They're evolving, just like us. We need to change our tactics before we engage them again." As they made their way back to Zethrax, a newfound determination coursed through Zyler. This battle was far from over, but he felt confident that the lessons learned from the Miniature Legion would guide them. They had already transformed their approach to warfare, and now it was time to adapt once more. Zyler was met with a mixture of concern and excitement. The council had been briefed about the reconnaissance mission, and the news of the new Caraxian warlord spread rapidly through the military ranks. Zyler's insights became the foundation for urgent strategy meetings, where military leaders gathered to discuss the shifting dynamics of their interstellar conflict. The atmosphere in the council chambers crackled with intensity. General Targan, who had previously doubted Zyler's integration of the Miniature Legion, now stood before the council with newfound urgency. "We've underestimated the Caraxes for too long," he stated, his voice firm. "We need to adapt, just as they are. Zyler's observations about their new leader's strategies are invaluable. We cannot afford to repeat our mistakes." Zyler felt a rush of validation as the council acknowledged his findings. "If we can incorporate the lessons learned from the Miniature Legion and the Caraxian strategies, we can outmaneuver them," he proposed. "We need to engage in psychological warfare, planting disinformation and creating distractions to confuse their command structure." Krixar nodded in agreement. "We should also expand our use of the Miniature Legion. They've shown remarkable adaptability. If we can integrate them into a more comprehensive strategy, we might stand a chance against this new warlord." Over the next few weeks, the Threxians focused on refining their tactics. Training sessions with the Miniature Legion intensified, blending the best of both worlds' Threxian technology and the insects' natural abilities. Zyler was there every step of the way, guiding the integration and witnessing the evolution of the new military doctrine. As they prepared for potential conflict, Zyler took it upon himself to spearhead a project to further enhance the capabilities of the Miniature Legion. He began collaborating with scientists and engineers to develop specialized equipment that would allow the ants to carry out more complex missions. This included miniature drones that could assist them in reconnaissance and communication. During one late-night session, as Zyler worked tirelessly in the lab, he pondered the implications of their ongoing adaptations. "What if we could augment the ants' intelligence?" he thought aloud to his team. "What if they could receive real-time data from our fleet and adjust their tactics accordingly?" His colleagues exchanged glances, intrigued by the idea. "It could allow them to operate with greater precision," one scientist replied. "But we'd need to ensure their natural instincts aren't compromised." Zyler nodded, understanding the delicate balance they had to maintain. "We'll work carefully. If we can enhance their communication without overriding their instinctual behaviors, we could create a truly formidable force." Days turned into weeks as they developed and tested the new systems. The Miniature Legion thrived under the integration, showcasing extraordinary capabilities. They began conducting simulated missions that incorporated real-time data feeds, executing complex strategies with uncanny precision. But just as they were about to unveil their new capabilities, an urgent transmission from a distant colony jolted everyone into action. The Caraxian warlord had launched a preemptive strike on one of their outer territories, overwhelming the defenses and causing widespread destruction. "We can't let this stand," Krixar exclaimed, his voice filled with determination. "We must mobilize our forces immediately and counterattack." Xyler felt a rush of adrenaline. This was the moment they had been preparing for. He quickly gathered the miniature legion, ready to deploy them in a way that would take full advantage of their newly enhanced capabilities. As the Threxian fleet gathered, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. The counteroffensive commenced under the cover of darkness, stealth being their primary advantage. Xyler watched as the miniature legion led the charge, their tiny forms darting toward the Caraxian stronghold. Each unit was equipped with miniature drones that provided real-time updates, allowing them to navigate through enemy defenses with ease. The initial phase of the attack went smoothly. The miniature legion infiltrated the Caraxian base, quickly gathering intelligence and sabotaging key systems. Xyler directed their movements from a command ship, his heart pounding with the thrill of battle. "Focus on their supply lines," he instructed through the comms. "We need to disrupt their ability to sustain this offensive." The ants responded with remarkable agility, maneuvering through tight spaces and executing their mission with precision. Xyler marveled at their effectiveness, feeling a surge of pride as they executed a flawless ambush against a Caraxian supply depot. But just as victory seemed within reach, the tides of battle began to shift. The Caraxian forces were far more prepared than anticipated, and the new warlord's leadership became evident. The Caraxian drones and soldiers rallied together, forming a defensive perimeter that began to push back against the Threxian assault. "Regroup," Krixar commanded over the comms. "We need to adapt our strategy." Xyler felt a pang of urgency as he watched the chaos unfold. "Send in the miniature legion for a diversion," he suggested. "We can draw their attention away from our main forces while we focus on their command center." As the order was given, the miniature legion sprang into action, executing a well-coordinated diversion. They swarmed toward the heart of the Caraxian base, drawing fire and attention. The insects worked in unison, darting around enemy soldiers and drones, creating chaos as they executed their tactics flawlessly. "Now, strike the command center," Xyler shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. The Threxian forces surged forward, using the distraction to breach the defenses of the Caraxian stronghold. But just as victory felt tangible, a terrifying realization dawned on Xyler. The Caraxian warlord had anticipated their tactics. With chilling precision, he activated a series of automated defenses designed to neutralize threats. Laser turrets sprang to life, targeting the miniature legion and the Threxian forces with deadly accuracy. "Get out! Fall back!" Krixar's voice echoed through the comms as the battlefield erupted in chaos. Xyler's heart sank as he watched the miniature legion, caught in the crossfire. They fought valiantly, but their numbers began to dwindle as the automated defenses wreaked havoc. The overwhelming power of the Caraxian stronghold threatened to extinguish the hope they had fought so hard to achieve. "Xyler, we need to regroup and reassess," Krixar urged, desperation creeping into his voice. But Xyler couldn't abandon the miniature legion. "No, we can't leave them," he shouted, a surge of determination igniting within him. "They've fought too hard to be sacrificed here." In a split-second decision, he initiated a command sequence to activate the drones attached to the miniature legion. "Drones, provide cover fire," he ordered, knowing it was a long shot. The drones whirred to life, launching a barrage of projectiles toward the automated turrets, providing the ants with a momentary reprieve. Xyler's heart raced as he directed the miniature legion to retreat strategically, drawing on their instincts to find safe passage. "Follow my lead," Xyler commanded, guiding them through the chaos. They moved with uncanny agility, slipping past the Caraxian defenses and regrouping with the Threxian forces, who were still engaged in battle. With the miniature legion back in the fold, the tide began to shift once more. The Threxian forces pressed forward, utilizing the newfound support of their hybrid insect units. As they closed in on the Caraxian command center, Xyler felt a surge of hope. "Push forward, we're almost there," he shouted, determination fueling his every command. The battle raged on, the clash of metal and energy punctuating the air as the two forces collided. Xyler could see the Caraxian warlord at the center of the fray, directing his troops with an iron fist. The time had come to confront the embodiment of their struggle. "Miniature Legion, it's time for a final assault," Xyler yelled, rallying the ants. They charged ahead, embodying the spirit of unity and resilience that had defined their journey. As they approached the warlord, Xyler's heart raced with anticipation. The battle unfolded in a flurry of motion, the Miniature Legion coordinating their attack with precision as they aimed for the warlord's command platform. With a brilliant flash, Xyler activated a specialized drone that released a pulse of energy, disrupting the warlord's control systems. The Caraxian forces faltered, confusion rippling through their ranks. "Now!" Xyler shouted, seizing the moment. "Strike!" The Miniature Legion surged forward, their collective strength amplified by the chaos. They launched a relentless assault, targeting the warlord and his command center with a ferocity that took everyone by surprise. As the warlord fought back, Xyler realized they needed to break through the final line of defense. "We have to finish this. Focus on the warlord." With a final, coordinated effort, the Miniature Legion pressed forward, their instincts guiding them as they swarmed the warlord. The confrontation escalated, an intense clash of wills as the Caraxian leader struggled to maintain control. And then, with a decisive strike, they overwhelmed the warlord. The Caraxian leader fell, and with him, the strength of the Caraxian forces began to dissipate. "Victory!" Xyler shouted, adrenaline flooding through him as he witnessed the tide turning in their favor. The remaining Caraxians scattered, their resolve shattered. Forces rallied, celebrating their hard-won victory. Xyler felt a wave of relief wash over him, but he knew the fight was far from over. The Caraxian warlord's defeat was a significant blow, yet there would be repercussions, and their enemies would not rest easily. As they gathered to assess the damage, Xyler's mind raced with thoughts of the future. The integration of the Miniature Legion had proven successful, and their adaptability had changed the face of the battlefield. But he also understood that this victory could lead to complacency. They needed to remain vigilant. "Admiral Crixar, we need to capitalize on this moment," Xyler suggested as they surveyed the remnants of the battlefield. "We can't allow the Caraxes to regroup. We should press our advantage while their forces are disoriented." Crixar, still catching his breath from the intensity of the battle, nodded in agreement. "You're right, Xyler, but we need to be cautious. This new warlord has shown himself to be resourceful. We can't underestimate what remains of their leadership." Xyler smiled, feeling the shared determination in the room. "Let's deploy the Miniature Legion for reconnaissance. They're perfect for gathering intel without attracting attention. We can learn what's left of their command structure and prevent any further retaliation." The Council quickly moved to action. As the Threxian fleet regrouped, they utilized the Miniature Legion to infiltrate remaining Caraxian strongholds. The insects proved invaluable, slipping into the shadows and transmitting data back to command. The reports revealed a fragmented command structure, with various factions vying for control in the aftermath of their leader's defeat. "We have a window of opportunity," Xyler reported during the next briefing. "The Caraxes are disorganized and fearful. We should push forward with our operations to dismantle their remaining forces." The Council debated the next steps. General Targan, who had initially opposed Xyler's ideas, had begun to see the potential in his strategies. "If we act swiftly, we can disrupt their supply lines and diminish their ability to regroup, but we'll need to maintain a solid front." Xyler proposed a multi-pronged approach. While the Miniature Legion continued intelligence-gathering missions, the Threxian fleet would launch targeted strikes against key Caraxian installations. The aim was not just to defeat them, but to demonstrate the consequences of their aggression. They needed to instill fear in their hearts, a lesson that would prevent future incursions. As the days unfolded, the operations began to blend seamlessly. showcasing the synergy between the Threxians and the Miniature Legion. The insects executed complex maneuvers that left Caraxian forces scrambling to respond. Supply depots were dismantled, communication networks disrupted, and fear spread among the ranks of the enemy. Xyler observed the results with pride, recognizing how far they had come. Their victories were not just against the Caraxian forces, but also against the ingrained beliefs that had once defined the Threxian approach to warfare. No longer were they solely reliant on brute strength. They had learned to be strategic, adaptable, and collaborative. But victory also came with unforeseen challenges. As the campaign continued, some within the Threxian ranks grew wary of the reliance on the Miniature Legion. A faction, led by General Targan, began to voice concerns about the potential erosion of Threxian military traditions. They feared that integrating the insects too deeply could weaken their own identity as a dominant species. "We cannot forget who we are," Targan argued during a heated council meeting. "The Miniature Legion has its place, but we must not lose sight of our strength. We cannot allow ourselves to become overly dependent on another species." Xyler stood to address the council, his voice steady but passionate. "General Targan, I understand your concerns, but we are not abandoning our identity. We are evolving. The galaxy is changing, and we must change with it. If we cling to outdated methods, we risk becoming obsolete." The debate raged on, with both sides presenting compelling arguments. But Xyler felt a sense of urgency. They were on the precipice of something monumental, and he believed that the partnership with the Miniature Legion was crucial for their survival. If they wanted to thrive, they needed to embrace this evolution rather than fear it. "I propose a trial," Xyler suggested, hoping to bridge the divide. "Let's conduct a series of joint operations that showcase both Threxian and Miniature Legion strengths. If we succeed, it could serve as proof of our capabilities together. If we fail, we can reassess our strategies." The council agreed to the trial, seeing it as a chance to evaluate their partnership without fully committing. As plans were put into motion, Xyler felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. He knew the stakes were high, and the outcome could define their military future. The trial operations commenced with an ambitious objective: a coordinated strike against a Caraxian fortress still operational near their border. The plan involved a series of simulated assaults, each designed to test the strengths of both the Threxian forces and the Miniature Legion. As they prepared for the mission, Xyler took a moment to reflect on the journey that had led them to this point. He recalled the first meetings with the Miniature Legion, the initial skepticism, and the eventual breakthroughs. This was more than a military operation. It was a testament to adaptability and cooperation. On the day of the trial, the atmosphere buzzed with a mix of excitement and anxiety. The Threxian forces assembled, their ships poised in the vastness of space, while the Miniature Legion prepared to deploy through small capsules that would land on the planet below. "Remember, we need to work as one," Xyler emphasized during a final briefing. "Our success depends on our ability to coordinate our efforts." As the operation began, the Threxian fleet launched a diversionary attack from the air, drawing the attention of the Caraxian defenses. Meanwhile, the Miniature Legion landed covertly, utilizing their agility to infiltrate the fortress undetected. The initial stages of the operation unfolded flawlessly. The Caraxian forces were confused and disoriented, unable to respond effectively to the dual-front assault. Xyler monitored the progress, feeling a swell of pride as he watched both factions work in concert. However, as they pushed deeper into the fortress, a hidden layer of defense activated automated turrets and traps that had not been revealed during their reconnaissance missions. The Caraxes had learned from their previous encounters, fortifying their stronghold against a potential attack. "Fall back, regroup," Krixar's voice rang out, urgency permeating the comms. Xyler's heart raced as he watched the chaos unfold. The automated defenses began to fire indiscriminately, and the Miniature Legion found themselves in a perilous situation, caught between enemy fire and their own tactical maneuvers. "Miniature Legion, redirect to the north side. Flank them," Xyler shouted, hoping to steer them clear of the heavy fire. The ants responded with instinctual agility, maneuvering through the defenses as Xyler guided them. But the situation was dire. The Caraxians were regaining their composure, launching a counteroffensive that threatened to engulf both the Threxian forces and the miniature legion. "Reinforcements," Targan shouted, rallying the Threxian soldiers. "We need to support our allies." The Threxian forces surged forward, but the chaos of battle was unrelenting. Xyler's mind raced as he sought a solution. "Krixar, we need to create a distraction. If we can divert their attention away from the miniature legion, we might give them the opportunity they need to reach the command center." Krixar nodded, determination etched on his face. "Let's split our forces. Half will provide cover while the other half pushes forward." As they executed the new plan, Xyler felt a renewed sense of hope. The Threxians and miniature legion fought side by side, each defending the other as they pressed forward. The automated defenses continued to wreak havoc, but the chaos also served to mask their movements. In a decisive moment, the miniature legion reached the command center, the heart of Caraxian operations. Xyler could hardly contain his excitement as he relayed the order to breach the facility. "Now, miniature legion, take out their command systems." The ants surged into action, overwhelming the Caraxian commanders and dismantling their systems with ruthless efficiency. Just as the command center began to destabilize, a powerful explosion rippled through the fortress, sending shockwaves through the ground. "Retreat! We need to fall back," Krixar shouted as alarms blared throughout the facility. Xyler felt a pang of regret as they fought to escape the collapsing stronghold. They had faced unexpected challenges, but he knew the operation had shown the potential of their partnership. Even amidst the chaos, they had succeeded in dismantling key defenses and demonstrating their combined might. As they regrouped on the surface, the Threxian forces celebrated their hard-won victory. The trial operation had showcased the effectiveness of the miniature legion, and Xyler felt a surge of optimism. They had proven that adaptability, cooperation, and strategic thinking could turn the tide of battle. But the victory came at a cost. As they assessed the damage, Xyler felt the weight of responsibility. "We must learn from this," he stated, addressing his fellow leaders. "We faced unexpected challenges, and it's crucial that we evaluate our strategies. The Caraxes will adapt again, and we must be prepared." Council gathered to debrief, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. General Targan, initially skeptical of the miniature legion, now appeared contemplative, perhaps recognizing the need for unity in their approach. "Xyler, your strategies during the trial operation proved invaluable," Targan began, his tone respectful. "While we faced unexpected challenges, your coordination with the miniature legion showcased the potential of this partnership. We need to formalize our approach moving forward." Xyler felt a swell of pride at the acknowledgement. "Thank you, General. We must continue to adapt and learn from our experiences. The Caraxes are not defeated. They are simply regrouping. We should reinforce our alliances with the miniature legion and ensure we can respond swiftly to any resurgence." Krixar chimed in. "I agree. We need to invest in our combined capabilities, perhaps even enhancing our technology further to support the miniature legion. If we can find ways to bolster their effectiveness on the battlefield, we could truly change the course of this war." The council members exchanged nods of agreement, and plans were laid out to develop new technologies that would further integrate the miniature legion into Threxian military operations. Xyler felt invigorated by the prospect. They had made significant strides, but there was still much work to be done. Over the next few weeks, the Threxians and the miniature legion worked closely together. Scientists and engineers from both factions collaborated to create enhanced communication devices, armor, and tactical drones specifically designed to support the insects in combat. Xyler found himself at the forefront of this effort, blending his knowledge of both Threxian and miniature tactics to craft a new military doctrine. As they developed new strategies, Xyler became aware of the burgeoning camaraderie that had formed between the Threxians and the miniature legion. The ants had adapted not just in tactics, but in their interaction with their Threxian counterparts. There was a sense of mutual respect. The insects displayed an almost sentient understanding of their role in the larger conflict, and the Threxians began to appreciate the unique capabilities the miniature legion brought to the battlefield. During one particularly intense training session, Xyler watched as a group of miniature legion soldiers executed a complex maneuver that involved coordinated drone strikes and ground assaults. The ants moved with precision, their small size allowing them to navigate obstacles that would have been insurmountable for larger troops. The drones provided real-time feedback, enhancing their situational awareness and enabling them to react dynamically to the evolving battlefield conditions. "Impressive work," Xyler shouted, clapping his hands as the simulation concluded. The ants paused, their antennae twitching in acknowledgement, a gesture he had come to recognize as their form of camaraderie. Yet, amidst the progress, a lingering sense of tension gnawed at him. The Caraxian forces were still a significant threat, and the balance of power remained precarious. Reports indicated that various factions within the Caraxian ranks were scrambling for leadership, each vying for control in the wake of their recent defeats. Xyler knew that if they were not careful, the Caraxes might consolidate their power and strike back with renewed force. One evening, as Xyler pored over reconnaissance reports, he came across troubling information. A faction led by a Caraxian named Vortax had begun mobilizing their forces in secret, exploiting the confusion among their ranks to gather strength. Vortax was known for his ruthless tactics and a personal vendetta against the Threxians. "Admiral Krixar," Xyler called urgently, summoning the council members for an emergency meeting. "We have a situation. Vortax is mobilizing his forces, and if we don't act quickly, we could find ourselves facing an overwhelming assault." The council gathered swiftly, concern etched on their faces as Xyler presented the evidence. "We need to preemptively strike before Vortax can consolidate his power. If we can dismantle his forces now, we may be able to destabilize the entire Caraxian command." Targan's brow furrowed. "We don't have full intelligence on Vortax's capabilities. Launching a strike could expose us to significant risk." Xyler countered, "But waiting gives him the advantage. We can't allow this threat to grow. We must take the initiative. The miniature legion can infiltrate and gather intelligence while our fleet provides cover." After much deliberation, the council agreed to proceed with Xyler's plan, albeit cautiously. They quickly assembled a task force, incorporating both Threxian soldiers and the miniature legion, preparing for what would be a decisive operation against Vortax's emerging faction. As the day of the operation approached, Xyler felt the weight of responsibility heavy upon him. The success of this mission could alter the course of the war, but it also carried the risk of significant losses. He spent the night before the operation with the miniature legion, discussing tactics and offering reassurance. "You've proven your capabilities time and time again," he told them, observing their eager responses. "This mission is another opportunity for us to demonstrate the strength of our alliance. Trust in your training, and remember that you're not just fighting for us, but for your own future as well." The next morning, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. The Threxian fleet gathered in orbit above the targeted Caraxian base, while the miniature legion prepared for their drop. Xyler stood at the command console, heart pounding as he gave the order to deploy. "Drop the miniature legion. Let's show them what we can do." The capsules descended through the atmosphere, landing with precision near the outskirts of the Caraxian stronghold. The miniature legion quickly deployed, their small forms darting into the shadows as they began their mission of infiltration and intelligence gathering. Xyler monitored their progress from the command ship, adrenaline coursing through him as he watched the feeds from the miniature legion's drones. They moved with an agility that made them nearly invisible to the Caraxian sentries, slipping past defenses and gathering vital intel. "Feed us their communications," Xyler instructed, his voice steady despite the tension. "We need to understand their strategies." The drones provided real-time data, allowing Xyler and the command team to discern Vortax's intentions. It became clear that he was rallying a sizable force, planning a counteroffensive that could devastate the Threxian lines if not addressed immediately. "Time to strike," Krixar declared, determination in his eyes. "We'll need to hit them hard before they can mobilize." As the Threxian fleet descended upon the Caraxian stronghold, Xyler felt a surge of adrenaline. They had to strike decisively to ensure their survival. "Coordinate with the Miniature Legion," he instructed. "We need them to take out key command structures while we engage the main forces." The battle erupted with ferocity, the Threxian fleet unleashing a barrage of firepower against the Caraxian defenses. Ground forces surged forward, engaging in fierce combat with the enemy. Meanwhile, the Miniature Legion executed their plan with breathtaking efficiency, disabling communications and targeting command units. Xyler was in the thick of the battle, directing both Threxian troops and the Miniature Legion as they pushed deeper into enemy territory. He could see the chaos unfold around him, the Caraxian defenses faltering as their command structure disintegrated. But just as victory seemed within reach, a chilling realization struck Xyler. Vortax had anticipated their attack. As the Threxian forces pressed forward, they found themselves ensnared in a well-laid trap. Automated defenses, hidden beneath the rubble of the stronghold, sprang to life, targeting both the Threxian soldiers and the Miniature Legion with deadly precision. "Retreat!" Xyler shouted, his heart racing as he tried to redirect his forces. "We need to regroup and reassess." Amidst the chaos, the Miniature Legion fought valiantly, utilizing their small size to evade the automated turrets. But the Caraxians rallied around Vortax's leadership, and the tide of battle began to shift once more. "Xyler, we need to create a diversion," Krixar urged, desperation in his voice. "If we can draw their fire, we might give the Miniature Legion a chance to regroup." With no time to lose, Xyler initiated a risky maneuver. "All available drones, provide cover fire. Threxian forces, focus on the main command unit. We need to disrupt Vortax's control." The Threxian soldiers launched a coordinated assault, drawing the attention of the Caraxian defenses. Xyler watched as the Miniature Legion darted through the chaos, regrouping and preparing for a final push. "Miniature Legion, it's now or never. Strike at the heart of their command," he commanded, adrenaline surging as he sensed the opportunity to turn the tide once more. With an astonishing display of unity, the ants surged forward, coordinated in their assault. They navigated through the labyrinth of Caraxian defenses, targeting the command unit with focused intensity. Xyler felt a thrill as he witnessed their determination, their small forms working together to create an unstoppable force. The command unit began to crumble under the onslaught, Vortax's forces faltering as confusion spread through their ranks. It was a moment of pure synergy, the Threxians and the Miniature Legion fighting side by side, each amplifying the other's strengths. "Push forward, we can't let up," Xyler shouted, feeling the adrenaline drive him as they pressed the advantage. Legion breached the command unit, swarming over Vortax's control center. The Caraxian warlord, realizing the situation had spiraled beyond his control, shouted commands that fell on deaf ears. Panic ensued among his troops. The Threxians, fueled by the sight of their enemies disorganized, surged forward, gaining ground. Xyler could see the Caraxian forces begin to falter, their confidence shattered as their command structure crumbled. He felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with the weight of responsibility. This was a pivotal moment. If they could secure a decisive victory, it might turn the tide of the war entirely. "General Targan, lead a contingent to flank the remaining forces," Xyler called, adrenaline propelling his words. "Let's cut off their retreat and ensure they cannot regroup." As Targan rallied the troops, Xyler turned his attention back to the Miniature Legion. "You're doing brilliantly. Stay coordinated. We need to neutralize their remaining defenses." The insects, small but fierce, moved in synchrony. With their enhanced communication tools, they executed complex tactics, dodging automated turrets and striking at the heart of the Caraxian command. The ground trembled as the remnants of Vortax's defenses fell, signaling that victory was within reach. But then, the ground beneath them began to shake. "What is happening?" Xyler shouted, scanning the battlefield for any signs of danger. Panic surged as an ominous rumble echoed through the air, followed by a series of violent explosions. A hidden cache of Caraxian explosives had been triggered, and the command center erupted into chaos. Dust and debris filled the air as both Threxian and Miniature Legion forces scrambled for cover. Xyler felt a sense of dread wash over him as he recognized the ramifications of such a disaster. "Regroup. We need to establish a defensive perimeter," he barked, trying to maintain order amidst the chaos. As the dust began to settle, Xyler frantically scanned the battlefield for his allies. His heart sank as he spotted several Miniature Legion soldiers trapped beneath the rubble, their antennae twitching in distress. Without a second thought, he sprinted toward them, calling for help. "Get them out. We can't leave our allies behind," he urged the nearby Threxian soldiers. The ground continued to tremble as the remnants of the Caraxian defenses fell. Just as Xyler reached the trapped soldiers, another explosion rocked the area, sending him sprawling to the ground. He looked up to see Vortex, amid the smoke and chaos, standing defiantly. "You think you can defeat me?" the Caraxian warlord bellowed, his voice dripping with venom. "You're just as weak as the insects you rely upon." Xyler struggled to his feet, anger surging within him. "This ends now, Vortex. You will pay for your arrogance." As the battle raged on around them, Xyler felt a surge of determination. This was not just a fight for survival. It was a battle for the future of their alliance and for the survival of both species. He squared his shoulders, ready to face the warlord. Vortex lunged forward, his claws gleaming with menace. The two engaged in a fierce struggle, the intensity of their confrontation echoing the chaos around them. Xyler could hear the sounds of battle, the shouts of Threxians and Miniature Legion soldiers as they fought against overwhelming odds. "You think your partnership will save you?" Vortex snarled, pushing Xyler back with surprising strength. "You're all just a distraction." Xyler, refusing to back down, countered with a swift maneuver, using the warlord's own momentum against him. "We are stronger together. You've underestimated us for too long." With a fierce determination, Xyler found an opening and drove his fist into Vortex's side, forcing the warlord to stumble. Seizing the moment, he delivered a series of calculated strikes, each one fueled by the hope of his people and the strength of his newfound allies. But Vortex was relentless, recovering quickly and retaliating with a swipe of his claws. Xyler barely dodged in time, feeling the rush of air as the Caraxian's talons grazed his arm. Pain flared, but he pushed it aside, focusing on the fight at hand. The ground continued to tremble, and the sounds of the battle blurred together in a cacophony of chaos. Xyler caught glimpses of the Miniature Legion regrouping, their tiny forms working in tandem to protect their allies. He felt a surge of pride. They had become a formidable force, united in purpose. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, Xyler spotted Targon leading a squadron of Threxians toward their position. "We need to take him down," Targon shouted, rallying his troops. "Push forward." With renewed strength, Xyler charged at Vortex, their clash escalating to a furious crescendo. He could feel the tide of the battle shifting. The Caraxian warlord, realizing he was outmatched, began to retreat, but not before unleashing one final attack. "Foolish Threxian, you will regret this," Vortex hissed, attempting to break through the line of soldiers. Xyler and Targon struck in unison, their combined strength overwhelming the warlord. In a final, desperate maneuver, Xyler launched himself at Vortex, delivering a decisive blow that sent the Caraxian sprawling to the ground. As the dust settled, the battlefield grew eerily quiet. Xyler stood over Vortex, his chest heaving as he regained his breath. "This is for all the lives you've destroyed," he declared, his voice firm. The remaining Caraxian soldiers, witnessing their leader's defeat, began to flee, abandoning their positions. The tide had turned. Victory belonged to the Threxians and the Miniature Legion. As the last remnants of Vortex's forces retreated, cheers erupted from the Threxian ranks. Soldiers embraced, celebrating their hard-fought victory, while the Miniature Legion gathered around Xyler and Targon, their antennae waving in excitement. "You did it! One of the miniature Legion leaders buzzed, their voice full of enthusiasm. "We did it together." Xyler felt a wave of relief wash over him as he acknowledged the partnership that had grown between their two species. "This victory is a testament to what we can achieve together. We are stronger united, and today, we've proven that." As the dust began to settle and the reality of their victory sunk in, Xyler knew there would be challenges ahead. The Caraxes might regroup, and new threats could emerge, but he also understood that they had forged a bond that would carry them forward. "Let's regroup and assess our losses," Targan suggested, his expression serious. "We need to ensure that we're prepared for any counterattacks." As they gathered the remaining troops, Xyler took a moment to reflect on how far they had come. The alliance between the Threxians and the Miniature Legion had not just transformed their military capabilities, it had changed their understanding of strength and cooperation. Later that evening, as they sat around a makeshift table in their command center, Xyler raised a glass in a toast. "To our victory today and the partnership that has made it possible. Together, we are more than just warriors. We are allies, friends, and protectors of our worlds." The room erupted in cheers, and Xyler felt a profound sense of hope. They had faced unimaginable challenges, and together they had overcome them. But as he looked at the faces around him, he understood that the journey was just beginning. The war was not over, but their unity had given them strength. As the stars twinkled outside, Xyler felt the resolve of both Threxians and the Miniature Legion solidify within him. They would stand together against any foe, ready to face whatever the future held. As discussions continued, they began planning their next steps. They would not rest on their laurels. The Caraxian forces might be weakened, but the remnants still posed a threat. With their newfound bond, they could turn the tides even further, striking at the heart of Caraxian power. Days turned into weeks, and the Threxians, along with the Miniature Legion, continued their campaign. They dismantled Caraxian strongholds, liberated oppressed colonies, and reinforced their territories. Each victory solidified their alliance and showcased the incredible potential that lay in their unity. Xyler became a symbol of this partnership, recognized not just as a Threxian leader, but as a champion of interspecies cooperation. He traveled between planets, meeting with leaders of other factions, sharing their success story, and inspiring hope in those who had suffered under Caraxian tyranny. One day, as he addressed a gathering on a distant world, Xyler spoke of resilience and the importance of community. "We have faced darkness, and together we have emerged victorious. Let us forge new paths, unite our strengths, and build a future where every species can thrive. Together, we can be a beacon of hope in this galaxy." As the crowd erupted in applause, Xyler felt a surge of determination. They were not just fighting against a common enemy. They were building something greater, a coalition that transcended species, cultures, and histories. They sat around a holographic display, projecting maps and data from recent skirmishes against the Caraxian forces. The air was charged with anticipation as each leader contributed insights and strategies, sharing the burden of their collective future. General Targan leaned over the map, tracing the lines that represented Caraxian positions. "We've taken significant territory, but Vortax's remnants are regrouping. They're not finished yet. We need to anticipate their next move." Xyler nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "We've proven our capability for rapid strikes. If we can identify their command center, we could disrupt their plans before they can fully mobilize." A Miniature Legion leader, a large ant with an impressive carapace named Zikron, spoke up. "We can send small infiltration units to scout their defenses. Our size allows us to slip through areas where your forces might be detected." "That's a good idea," Targan agreed, his eyes lighting up. "If we can gather intelligence on their numbers and equipment, we can formulate a precise strike plan." The meeting continued late into the night, strategies evolving as they combined the strengths of both species. They would use the Miniature Legion for reconnaissance and intelligence gathering, while the Threxian forces would prepare for a full-scale assault based on the data gathered. In the days that followed, the atmosphere of camaraderie and urgency permeated the base. Xyler worked closely with the Miniature Legion, training alongside them to better understand their tactics and capabilities. He found himself growing increasingly impressed by their ingenuity. The ants displayed a remarkable ability to adapt and innovate, constantly finding new ways to leverage their size in combat situations. As the day of the operation approached, tension filled the air. Each faction prepared for the coming battle, ensuring their soldiers were ready both physically and mentally. Xyler took time to meet with the troops, delivering impassioned speeches that emphasized their unity. "Today, we are not just Threxians or insects," he declared, pacing before a gathering of soldiers. "We are a force for change. Together, we can dismantle the Caraxian threat and secure our future." Cheers erupted from the crowd, a mix of Threxians and Miniature Legion soldiers standing side by side, their collective spirit palpable. Xyler felt a surge of pride as he looked out over the united front. This was more than a battle. It was a movement, a testament to what they could achieve together. The night before the operation, Xyler found himself unable to sleep. He wandered outside, gazing up at the stars. The vastness of the universe always amazed him, but now it felt more intimate, as if the cosmos were watching over them, ready to witness their struggle. He recalled his early skepticism about the Miniature Legion, how he had doubted their capabilities. But now they were partners, comrades in arms. The thought filled him with both gratitude and resolve. If they succeeded, it would redefine not just their war, but their understanding of strength and collaboration. Morning arrived, and the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. The plan was set in motion. Xyler and Targan led the Threxian forces, while Zikron coordinated the Miniature Legion scouts. As they moved toward the Caraxian stronghold, the tension heightened, each soldier aware of the stakes at play. As they approached the enemy camp, the Miniature Legion deployed ahead, their small forms becoming nearly invisible among the underbrush. Xyler watched intently through his command screen, relaying information as Zikron communicated their findings. "We're in position," Zikron's voice crackled over the comms. "We've identified key command units and defensive structures. They're less organized than we anticipated, but there are still plenty of automated defenses." Xyler nodded, a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. "Thank you, Zikron. Threxian forces, prepare to engage. We'll take down their defenses and open the way for our Miniature Legion allies to strike." As they moved in, the Threxian soldiers advanced with confidence, their tactics honed through countless battles. Automated turrets whirred to life, but Xyler's troops were ready. They moved in organized formations, dodging fire and returning it with deadly precision. "Now, Miniature Legion, move in," Xyler commanded, watching as the ants surged forward, expertly avoiding the automated defenses. They darted through gaps, targeting control panels and disabling key systems. The synchronized assault was mesmerizing, a beautiful dance of strategy and instinct. But just as they began to gain ground, an alarm blared through the Caraxian camp. "They've detected us," Targan shouted, his voice laced with urgency. "Reinforcements are incoming." Xyler felt a surge of determination. "Hold the line. We can't let them regroup. Focus on their command center." As the battle raged around them, Xyler fought alongside Targan, pushing deeper into the Caraxian stronghold. They encountered fierce resistance, but the Threxians were relentless, their spirits unbroken. The Miniature Legion worked seamlessly alongside them, taking out sentries and infiltrating the heart of the enemy base. In the midst of the chaos, Xyler spotted Zikron coordinating a group of ants. "We need to disable their communication systems," Zikron called, urgency coloring his tone. "It'll cut them off from reinforcements." Xyler nodded. "Lead the way. We'll cover you." As the Miniature Legion executed their plan, Xyler and Targan faced a renewed wave of Caraxian soldiers, their desperation evident. Each battle cry resonated through the air, reminding Xyler of the stakes. They were fighting not just for their survival, but for the future of their alliance. Suddenly, a Caraxian officer emerged, rallying the troops with a commanding presence. "Push them back. Show them the might of our forces," he roared, attempting to instill confidence in his beleaguered troops. "Focus on that officer," Targan shouted. "If we can take him down, it'll demoralize their ranks." With renewed fervor, Xyler and Targan advanced, cutting through the Caraxian soldiers. Xyler felt his heart race as he closed the distance to the officer, who was barking orders. With a swift maneuver, Xyler tackled him, the two combatants crashing to the ground. "Your time is over, Caraxian," Xyler shouted, grappling for control. The officer fought back fiercely, but Xyler was fueled by adrenaline and the hope of his people. Just as he was gaining the upper hand, Vortax's voice echoed through the comms. "Fools, you think this battle is won? You will suffer the consequences." Xyler felt a chill run down his spine. "Vortax," he breathed, struggling to maintain his grip on the officer. Vortax's taunts reverberated in his mind as he wrestled with the Caraxian officer. "Your victory is fleeting. The Caraxes will rise again, stronger and more determined. You can't destroy our legacy." With one final surge of strength, Xyler pinned the officer down, delivering a decisive blow. "Your legacy ends here," he declared, rising to his feet as the Caraxian officer slumped to the ground. Around him, the battle continued to rage. The Threxians pressed forward, their resolve unwavering as they pushed deeper into the stronghold. The miniature legion was working with precision, rapidly disabling critical systems and sowing chaos among the enemy ranks. "Let's finish this," Targan called, rallying the troops. "We take the command center, and we dismantle the Caraxian threat once and for all." Xyler nodded, determination flooding his veins. Together, they charged toward the command center, where the remaining Caraxian leaders were trying to regroup. The sight of their fallen comrades and the chaotic energy of the miniature legion's assault pushed them to panic. "Fall back! Regroup!" one of the Caraxian leaders shouted, desperation in his voice. But it was too late. The Threxians and the miniature legion surged into the command center, overwhelming the last defenses. Xyler felt a surge of triumph as he saw their unity and strength materialize in that moment. They had fought together, side by side, and they would emerge victorious. As they fought through the last of the Caraxian soldiers, the command center fell silent, the remnants of the Caraxian command defeated. Xyler and Targan stood together amidst the chaos, breathing heavily as they surveyed the scene. "Victory is ours," Targan said, a sense of pride radiating from him. Xyler felt the weight of the moment wash over him. They had turned the tide of the war, proving that their alliance was formidable. He turned to Zikron and the miniature legion, who were gathering around them, their antennae waving in excitement. "We did it," Zikron exclaimed, his voice filled with joy. "Together, we achieved the impossible." The celebration erupted, cheers ringing through the command center as the soldiers embraced one another, the walls echoing with their triumph. Xyler felt a swell of emotion as he looked at the faces around him. They were not just warriors, they were family. The Threxians and the miniature legion became symbols of resistance, showcasing the power of unity against tyranny. On one such mission, Xyler found himself on the lush, green planet of Viridian, known for its diverse ecosystems and rich resources. The Viridonians, a peaceful species with an affinity for nature, had suffered under Caraxian oppression for far too long. Their elders welcomed Xyler and his entourage with cautious hope, eager yet hesitant to commit to an alliance. "Your victory is inspiring," Elder Silra said, her eyes reflecting the verdant landscape. "But we fear the cost of resistance. The Caraxians are relentless." Xyler nodded, understanding their concerns. "I know the cost of war is high, but the price of inaction is even greater. Together, we can protect our worlds and ensure a future free from oppression. You have seen what we can achieve when we unite. We're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for every species under threat." Elder Silra exchanged glances with her fellow leaders, weighing the potential risks and rewards. "We will consider your words. Our people need time to discuss." As Xyler left the council chamber, he felt a mix of hope and anxiety. He understood the hesitance. They were asking the Viridonians to risk everything. But he also knew that their message was powerful If they could inspire even a few more species to join their alliance, the impact would be monumental. Days turned into a week, and Xyler remained on Viridian, engaging with the local populace, sharing stories of the Threxians and the Miniature Legion, highlighting their shared struggles. He learned about the Veridonians' deep connection to their land, their cultural practices that celebrated harmony with nature. One afternoon, while wandering through a vibrant market, Xyler encountered a group of young Veridonians discussing the recent battles. Their voices were filled with admiration for the Miniature Legion's bravery, sparking a flicker of hope. "They fought alongside the Threxians, didn't they?" one young Veridonian said, excitement evident in their tone. "I heard they took down an entire Caraxian outpost. Imagine if we joined them. We could drive the Caraxians off our planet." Another chimed in, their eyes bright with enthusiasm. Xyler smiled, feeling the energy of their resolve. This was the spirit he sought to ignite. Encouraged, he approached the group, introducing himself as a leader in the alliance. "We need young voices like yours in this fight," he said, kneeling to their level. "You can inspire your people to stand against the oppressors. Together, we can reclaim what is rightfully yours." As he spoke, he noticed the spark of determination in their eyes. They were eager to share their stories, to be part of something larger than themselves. Xyler realized that the future lay not just in the hands of their leaders, but in the hearts of the youth who would carry their hopes forward. After another week of engaging with the Veridonians, Elder Silra finally summoned Xyler to the council chamber. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation. "We have come to a decision," she announced, her voice steady. "We will join your alliance. Together, we will fight back against the Caraxians." Cheers erupted among the assembled leaders, and Xyler felt a rush of triumph. "Thank you, Elder Silra. Your bravery will inspire others. Together, we will create a force that no oppressor can withstand." As they forged their alliance, Xyler and the Veridonians began planning joint operations, combining their strengths. The Veridonians, adept at guerrilla tactics within their own terrain, would work alongside the Threxians and Miniature Legion to launch surprise attacks on Caraxian supply lines. The day of their first joint operation arrived, and Xyler stood at the forefront, flanked by Elder Silra and General Targan. The atmosphere buzzed with determination as they surveyed their assembled forces, a harmonious blend of Threxians, Miniature Legion soldiers, and the newly minted Veridonian fighters. "Today, we stand as one," Xyler declared, raising his fist. "We will strike a blow against the Caraxians, showing them that we will not be silenced or subdued." As they moved toward their target, a Caraxian supply depot hidden deep within Viridian's forest, their hearts beat as one. The Veridonians guided the Threxians through dense underbrush, utilizing their intimate knowledge of the land to navigate stealthily. Upon reaching the depot, the troops took their positions, and Xyler relayed the plan. "Miniature Legion, you'll create a diversion by disabling their perimeter defenses. Veridonians, you'll flank from the east. Threxians will provide cover fire as we move in." The air crackled with tension as they executed the plan. The Miniature Legion scurried toward the depot, their small forms barely visible as they began to disable turrets and alarms. Almost immediately, chaos erupted as the Caraxians realized they were under attack. "Now!" Xyler shouted, and the Threxian and Veridonian forces surged forward, catching the Caraxians off guard. The element of surprise worked in their favor as they overwhelmed the enemy with a swift, coordinated assault. The battle was fierce but short-lived. The Caraxian soldiers, unprepared for such an organized resistance, began to falter. Xyler fought alongside Targan and Silra, their combined strength pushing the Caraxians back. As they fought, Xyler's thoughts flickered back to their shared journey, the trials and triumphs that had brought them here. This moment was more than just a battle. It was a testament to their unity and resilience. With a final push, they secured the supply depot, capturing vital resources that would bolster their efforts. Cheers erupted as the Caraxian flag was torn down and replaced with a banner symbolizing their alliance. The victory galvanized the surrounding systems. News of their triumph spread quickly, And soon, other oppressed worlds began to reach out, seeking to join their cause. Xyler and his allies were no longer just fighting against a common enemy. They were sparking a movement for liberation. As they continued to campaign across various planets, the bond between the Threxians, Miniature Legion, and their new allies deepened. Each victory brought fresh recruits, and with each new ally came the promise of a brighter future. However, with increased success came greater challenges. The Caraxian leadership, now led by a more ruthless general named Zarnok, was not willing to accept defeat. Zarnok had been biding his time, regrouping his forces and plotting revenge against the burgeoning alliance. One fateful day, as Xyler met with Targan and Silra to discuss their next operations, the air turned tense as a communications officer rushed in. Panic etched across her face. "General, we've received reports of a large Caraxian fleet mobilizing toward our last stronghold." "Zarnok," Targan muttered, anger evident in his voice. "He's coming for us." Xyler felt a wave of dread wash over him. "We need to prepare our defenses and rally our forces. This is not just a fight for survival. It's a fight for everything we've built together." They quickly mobilized their troops, reaching out to their allies for reinforcements. The Veridonians, fueled by their determination to protect their home, rallied to strengthen their defenses. The Miniature Legion coordinated a network of scouts to gather intelligence on the Caraxian fleet. As night fell, the atmosphere became charged with anticipation. Xyler stood atop a ridge, looking down at their stronghold. The Caraxian ships could be seen on the horizon, their dark silhouettes ominous against the night sky. "They will come for us with everything they have," Silra said, standing beside him. "We need a plan." Xyler nodded, his mind racing. "We'll use the terrain to our advantage. The Veridonians can create traps within the forest. The Miniature Legion can serve as scouts to disrupt their approach. Threxians will stand firm at the front lines." As they discussed their strategies, Xyler couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. Zarnok was cunning, and this time they had to be ready for anything. The following day, the battle began. The Caraxian fleet descended upon their stronghold, and the air filled with the sounds of war. Xyler and his allies stood firm, united in their resolve. As the Caraxians advanced, the Veridonians executed their traps flawlessly, sending enemy troops reeling into chaos. The Miniature Legion darted through the fray, disabling critical systems on enemy ships and creating confusion among their ranks. But Zarnok was relentless. As the battle raged on, he sent in wave after wave of reinforcements, pushing the alliance to their limits. The combined forces of the Threxians, Veridonians, and Miniature Legion fought bravely, but the Caraxian numbers began to overwhelm them. "Hold the line," Targan shouted, determination etched on his face as he fought back against the Caraxian soldiers. "We cannot let them breach our defenses." Xyler fought alongside him, feeling the weight of the battle pressing down on them. Each moment stretched into eternity as they struggled to maintain their position. The Caraxians were closing in, their relentless attacks battering their defenses. Victory was more than just a tactical win. It symbolized the dawn of a new era for the Alliance and countless worlds across the galaxy. As they regrouped, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement and a sense of triumph. "We've done it," Targan said, clapping Xyler on the back. "The Caraxians won't recover from this. We've broken their hold over the region." Xyler nodded, feeling the weight of their achievements settling in. "But we need to ensure that this victory translates into lasting change. We can't just dismantle their leadership. We need to establish a new order, one built on cooperation and respect among all species." Zikron, the leader of the Miniature Legion, chimed in, his voice filled with enthusiasm. "We've shown that unity is our greatest weapon. We must work together to rebuild the societies they destroyed and ensure that the lessons of this conflict are never forgotten." As they prepared to leave the stronghold, Xyler's mind was already racing with ideas. He envisioned a council of representatives from each allied species, a governing body that would promote peace, collaboration, and mutual respect. It was an ambitious dream, but after witnessing their unity in battle, he believed it could become a reality. Back at their main base of operations, the Alliance leaders convened to discuss their next steps. The mood was electric, filled with a shared sense of purpose. "We must reach out to other worlds," Elder Silra suggested. "Our victory will inspire those still under Caraxian rule. We need to offer them hope." Xyler agreed. "We can establish a communications network to connect with those planets. We can provide support and guidance as they rise against oppression." As plans began to take shape, news spread of their victory, igniting hope across the galaxy. Systems once paralyzed by fear began to rally, and requests for assistance flooded in. Xyler and his allies were ready to act. Days turned into weeks as they worked tirelessly to create the new governing body, aptly named the Galactic Alliance for Freedom. Each species brought unique perspectives and strengths to the table, crafting a vision that honored their diversity while emphasizing their shared commitment to freedom and justice. Xyler took on the role of ambassador, traveling to various planets to meet with leaders and communities. He found joy in connecting with different cultures, sharing stories of the Alliance's victories, and reinforcing the belief that they were no longer alone in their struggles. During one visit to the planet Terathia, home to a species known for their unparalleled ability to manipulate energy, Xyler felt a sense of camaraderie. The Terathians had suffered greatly under Caraxian rule, and their resolve to join the Alliance was palpable. "The Caraxians believed they could extinguish our spirit," said their leader, a wise elder named Vartak. "But they underestimated our power. With your help, we will rise again." Xyler was inspired by their tenacity. "Together, we are stronger than any oppressor. The Galactic Alliance will ensure that no one faces tyranny alone again." As they returned to their base, the Alliance leaders convened to discuss the influx of new members and the resources they could provide. They formulated plans to share technology, intelligence, and training, ensuring that every member of the Alliance was equipped to defend themselves against any future threats. However, not all systems were welcoming. A faction of Caraxians, disillusioned but determined, refused to accept their defeat. This faction, led by a charismatic figure named Igor, began rallying remnants of the Caraxian forces, seeking to reclaim their former power. "We cannot underestimate Igor," Targan warned during one of their strategy meetings. "He's already gaining followers among those who feel lost after our victory. If we don't address this quickly, we may face another conflict." Xyler nodded, acknowledging the potential threat. "We need to confront Igor before he can consolidate power. Let's gather intelligence on his movements and determine how best to counter his influence." As the Alliance worked diligently to monitor Igor's activities, Xyler and Targan traveled to different worlds, engaging with local leaders to strengthen their resolve against any resurgence of Caraxian power. They held town halls, fostering open discussions about the future and addressing concerns of potential conflict. Meanwhile, Zikron and the Miniature Legion embarked on reconnaissance missions, gathering valuable information about Igor's forces. They discovered that he had established a base on the remote planet of Zoltar, known for its rugged terrain and strategic location. "This is our opportunity," Zikron reported to the Council. "If we can strike Igor's base and disrupt his operations, we can undermine his influence and prevent him from gaining a larger following." The Alliance quickly devised a plan, utilizing the strengths of each member. The Threxians would lead the charge, supported by the Veridonians' guerrilla tactics. The Miniature Legion would infiltrate the base, sabotaging their defenses and sowing confusion among Igor's forces. On the day of the operation, Xyler felt the familiar rush of adrenaline. Standing before the assembled troops, he could sense the determination radiating from them. "Today, we stand not only for our freedom, but for the future of every species that dreams of liberation. Together, we will ensure that tyranny has no place in our galaxy." As they launched their assault on Zoltar, the Alliance moved with precision. The Threxians charged forward, their imposing presence striking fear into Igor's soldiers. Meanwhile, the Veridonians navigated the terrain, setting traps that caught many of the enemy off guard. Zikron and the Miniature Legion slipped into the shadows, darting through enemy lines to disable critical systems. They expertly sabotaged communications, cutting off Igor's ability to coordinate with his forces. Chaos erupted as the Caraxian soldiers, confused and disoriented, struggled to regroup. Xyler fought alongside Targan, pushing deeper into the heart of the base. "We need to find Igor and end this," Targan shouted, parrying a blow from a Caraxian soldier. "Agreed," Xyler replied, determination fueling his every move. They fought their way through the chaos, aware that the fate of their alliance depended on dismantling Igor's ambitions. As they navigated the winding corridors of the base, they finally reached a central chamber, where Igor stood, flanked by a handful of his most loyal followers. "You're too late," Igor sneered, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I will reclaim what is rightfully ours." Xyler stepped forward, meeting Igor's gaze. "Your time is over. You will not threaten the freedom we've fought so hard to achieve." With that, the battle resumed, and Xyler charged at Igor. The two engaged in a fierce duel, exchanging blows as the chaos of battle raged around them. Targan and Zikron fought off Igor's followers, ensuring that their focus remained on the Caraxian leader. "Do you really believe you can unite these weaklings?" Igor spat, his eyes filled with venom. "They will turn against you as soon as I expose your weaknesses." Xyler pressed forward, determination blazing in his heart. "We are stronger together than apart. You are the one who underestimates us." With a sudden surge of energy, Xyler delivered a powerful strike, knocking Igor back against the wall. The Caraxian leader grimaced but quickly regained his footing. "You may have the upper hand today, but this fight is far from over," he growled, before retreating deeper into the chamber. "Stop him!" Xyler shouted, but Igor was already making his escape, a shadow among the chaos. Targan and Zikron pursued him, determined to prevent his getaway. Xyler and the remaining forces focused on subduing the rest of Igor's followers, the tide of battle shifting in their favor. The remnants of the Caraxian soldiers, realizing their leader had fled, began to waver. The alliance seized the moment, pushing forward and ensuring victory. After the dust settled, Xyler regrouped with Targan and Zikron. "Did you catch him?" he asked, breathless. "No," Targan replied, frustration evident in his voice. "He slipped away, but we dealt a heavy blow to his forces. Many of them have surrendered." Xyler sighed, knowing that while they had won this battle, the threat of Igor remained. "We need to ensure that word of our victory reaches every corner of the galaxy. We must show them that oppression will not stand against united strength." In the following days, the Alliance worked to dismantle Igor's remaining forces and reinforce their presence across the region. News of their victories spread like wildfire, inspiring hope among worlds that had long been oppressed. However, Xyler remained vigilant, aware that Igor was still out there, waiting for an opportunity to strike back. He convened the council to discuss their next steps, emphasizing the need for vigilance. "We've made significant progress, but we must prepare for the possibility of Igor's return," he urged. "We can't allow complacency to set in. Our success depends on our unity and our readiness." Elder Silra nodded, her eyes filled with wisdom. "We should consider establishing a system of communication among our member worlds, ensuring that we can quickly mobilize should any threat arise." As plans for improved communication systems began to take shape, Xyler felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were building not only an alliance, but a legacy that would resonate throughout the galaxy. The alliance flourished, establishing trade routes, sharing technology, and promoting cultural exchanges. Each species contributed its strengths, weaving a rich tapestry of cooperation that would become a beacon of hope across the galaxy. Despite the victories, Xyler remained acutely aware of Igor's potential for resurgence. The Caraxian remnants had proven resilient, and whispers of Igor's continued efforts to rally support began to circulate. Xyler took it upon himself to remain vigilant, frequently meeting with local leaders and intelligence teams to ensure they stayed one step ahead. During one particularly tense meeting with the council, Zikron entered with urgent news. I've received intelligence that Igor is regrouping on the fringes of the Sereth system. He's been gaining followers from worlds that feel abandoned by the Alliance. Abandoned? Targan echoed incredulously. We've done everything we can to reach out. What more can we do? We need to show them that we stand united, Xyler interjected, a sense of urgency in his voice. If Igor is convincing these worlds that we've turned our backs, we need to take action. We can't let him gain traction. Elder Silra raised a hand, her expression contemplative. Perhaps we should consider an outreach mission to those worlds. If we can show them the benefits of the Alliance, we might turn their support back in our favor. Xyler nodded, appreciating her wisdom. A coalition of ambassadors from different species could be effective. We can share stories of our victories and the promise of a brighter future together. Let me lead the mission, Targan offered, his eyes shining with determination. I know the Threxian culture well enough to relate to them. I can show them what we've accomplished and what we can do together. Agreed, Xyler said. We need your strength and presence. Let's gather a diverse group to accompany you miniature legion members for stealth, Veridonians for strategy, and representatives from other species to emphasize our unity. As the plan took shape, Targan began assembling a team of ambassadors. Zikron selected several of his most skilled operatives, while Silra arranged for Veridonians who had experience in diplomacy to join the mission. Within days, they were ready to depart. As they journeyed to the Sereth system, Xyler remained hopeful. He believed in the power of unity, but as they arrived, a sense of apprehension settled in. The planets in the Sereth system were known for their rich resources, but had suffered under Caraxian exploitation. Many inhabitants harbored deep-seated mistrust toward any outside force. They made their first stop on a planet called Meraxis, known for its vibrant landscapes and diverse populations. The atmosphere was tense, the people cautious of any newcomers. Targan stepped forward, his presence commanding as he addressed a gathering crowd. "We come in peace," he began, his voice resonating across the marketplace. "We are representatives of the Galactic Alliance for Freedom. We know you have suffered greatly, and we wish to extend our hands in friendship." The crowd murmured, their expressions skeptical. One figure stepped forward, a wiry man with a face etched by hardship. "You're here to sell us more lies? The Caraxians promised us the stars, but they only left us with devastation." Targan held up his hands, trying to calm the crowd. "We understand your pain, and we're not here to make promises we can't keep. We're here to show you that there is a better way. Together, we can rebuild our worlds and create a future free from oppression." A woman from the back of the crowd spoke up, her voice steady. "Why should we trust you? You defeated one enemy only to come here claiming to offer us something better. How do we know you won't turn your backs on us?" "We won't," Targan replied firmly. "The Alliance is built on cooperation and respect for every species. We've learned from the past, and we're committed to ensuring that no one is left behind. We want to hear your stories, your needs, and together, we can build a future." As he spoke, Zikron and his team quietly dispersed among the crowd, listening to the conversations that unfolded. They gathered intel, noting concerns and aspirations, ready to relay the information back to the Alliance. Over the next few days, Targan and his team held open forums, inviting the residents of Meraxis to share their experiences. Slowly, the walls of distrust began to crack, and stories of loss transformed into conversations about hope. One evening, a young woman stepped forward, her eyes filled with passion. "If you truly want to help us, then show us. We need resources, support for rebuilding our farms, and protection against any threats that may arise." Targan nodded, recognizing the gravity of her words. "We can assist with resources, technology, and training, but we need to know what specific challenges you face." As the discussions deepened, they began to forge connections. The residents of Meraxis shared their agricultural techniques, while the Alliance members showcased their technological advancements. It was a reciprocal exchange that fostered trust. Days turned into weeks, and Targan's outreach mission expanded to other planets within the Sereth system. Each world they visited presented unique challenges and opportunities, but a common theme emerged, a longing for empowerment and unity. During their travels, news reached them that Igor was stirring unrest among the planets they had yet to visit. "He's exploiting their fears, painting us as conquerors rather than allies," Zikron warned as they prepared to depart for their next destination. "Then we must counter his narrative," Targan declared, determination etched on his face. "We'll bring representatives from the planets we've already visited to amplify our message. If they see firsthand the strength of our alliance, it may help quell Igor's influence." With a renewed sense of urgency, Targan and his team returned to Meraxis, gathering leaders from each planet they had previously visited. They organized a summit to discuss how to counter Igor's growing threat and solidify their commitment to the alliance. As the day of the summit approached, excitement filled the air. Residents decorated the gathering hall with symbols of their cultures, showcasing the diversity of the alliance. It was a powerful visual reminder of their collective strength. When the summit began, Targan stood before the assembly, feeling the weight of the moment. "We are here not only to forge our destinies together, but to stand against those who would seek to divide us. Igor may try to manipulate our fears, but we are stronger together." Leaders from the other planets stepped forward, sharing their stories of resilience and hope. They spoke of the tangible benefits they had experienced from their interactions with the Alliance, how their communities were beginning to heal and rebuild. Xyler, who had joined the summit to lend his support, watched with pride as Targan's charisma captivated the crowd. "We are not here to dictate your future, but to walk alongside you," he declared. "Your voices matter, and together, we will ensure that oppression does not return." The atmosphere shifted, the energy in the room transforming from skepticism to solidarity. As they forged agreements for mutual support and shared resources, the foundations of a new alliance solidified. However, as the summit concluded, an urgent message came through from Zikron's reconnaissance team. "Igor has mobilized forces and is on the move toward Meraxis," he reported, his tone grave. "He's trying to exploit the moment of unity to spark conflict." "We can't let him disrupt what we've built," Targan said, determination shining in his eyes. "We need to prepare for his attack. If we stand united, we can repel him and show our resolve." Quickly, the leaders of the summit sprang into action. Plans were made for a defense, drawing on the resources and strengths of each world represented. They fortified the defenses of Meraxis, rallying their people and training them for the upcoming confrontation. As night fell, Xyler stood atop a hill overlooking the city, feeling the weight of what was to come. He saw the lights of Meraxis twinkling below, a symbol of hope. The alliance had come so far, and he knew they couldn't falter now. "Xyler," Targan joined him, his expression serious. "We need to discuss our strategy for tomorrow. If Igor thinks he can sow discord, we must be ready to counter his every move." "Agreed," Xyler replied, turning to face Targan. "But remember, our greatest weapon is our unity. We must demonstrate that the people of these worlds stand together, no matter what Igor throws at us." The next day, as dawn broke over Meraxis, the Alliance prepared for battle. The atmosphere was tense, but a sense of camaraderie filled the air. They were ready to fight not just for their own worlds, but for the future they had begun to build together. When Igor's forces finally arrived, the sight was daunting, a massive fleet of Caraxian ships, darkening the skies above Meraxis. But Xyler and Targan stood resolute, flanked by representatives from each world. As the Caraxians descended, Targan stepped forward, his voice ringing with authority. "You will not divide us, Igor. The Galactic Alliance for Freedom stands united against your tyranny." A hush fell over the battlefield as Igor emerged from his flagship, his face twisted in disdain. "You think this makes you strong? You're nothing but a collection of weaklings." With that declaration, the first clash erupted. The air crackled with tension as Igor's forces advanced, a dark tide of armored soldiers and war machines. But the Alliance stood resolute, bolstered by the shared stories of their struggles and the bonds they had forged over the past months. Targan led the charge, his Threxian warriors unleashing their battle cries, while Zikron and his miniature legion flanked their allies, executing stealth maneuvers to disrupt enemy formations. The Veridonians, known for their tactical brilliance, coordinated the defense, ensuring that each member of the alliance played to their strengths. Xyler found himself at the forefront of the fray, his heart pounding as he faced Caraxian soldiers. With every movement, he felt the weight of his people's hopes on his shoulders. He struck down foes with precision, focusing on their unity and the future they envisioned. As the battle raged on, Igor's forces began to falter. The Caraxians, used to the oppressive fear they had instilled, struggled against the resolve of the United Worlds. Xyler's voice rose above the chaos. "Remember why we fight. For every family, every child, every dream denied by tyranny." The Alliance pushed forward, gaining ground as they fought back with unyielding determination. But Igor, sensing his defeat, resorted to desperate measures. He activated hidden weapons within his flagship, unleashing devastating blasts intended to scatter the Alliance and sow discord among their ranks. Explosions rocked the battlefield as debris rained down. Xyler ducked and weaved through the chaos, rallying his comrades. "Stay together. Focus on the mission." Targon and Zikron fought side by side, their bond solidified through the shared struggle. "We can't let him split us apart," Zikron shouted, using his agile form to outmaneuver a group of Caraxians. As Igor's attacks intensified, Targon called for a strategic regrouping. "We need to rally our forces. We can't let panic set in." With a swift and calculated maneuver, the Alliance formed a defensive perimeter, creating a bastion against Igor's relentless assault. As they huddled together, Targon stood at the forefront, his presence radiating strength. "We've come too far to let fear dictate our actions. We fight for each other and for the future we've begun to build." The words resonated deeply, igniting the spirits of every soldier present. In that moment, the Alliance became a symbol of hope, a bright light against the encroaching darkness of tyranny. They pushed back, with renewed vigor, against Igor's forces, refusing to be cowed. But Igor wasn't finished yet. With a final, desperate attempt, he unleashed a barrage of energy blasts from his flagship, targeting the heart of the Alliance's formation. The sky lit up with colors of destruction, and panic threatened to spread through the ranks. Just as it seemed that chaos might reign, the residents of Meraxis who had watched in fear rallied to support their newfound allies. Armed with makeshift weapons and a determination born of suffering, they surged onto the battlefield. "We won't let our home be taken again," one of the leaders shouted, joining the Alliance's front lines. "We stand with you." The sight galvanized the Alliance forces. It was a powerful reminder that the battle wasn't just about politics or power, it was about their homes, their families, and their very lives. With the support of the Meraxians, the Alliance pressed forward, pushing through the onslaught. Targon led the charge, fighting side by side with the locals. "For freedom," he bellowed, his voice echoing through the chaos. Xyler moved with precision, his focus sharpened. He spotted Igor in the distance, orchestrating the chaos from his flagship. "We need to cut off the head of this serpent," he shouted, determination fueling his every step. He began making his way through the chaos, his comrades falling in behind him. The Alliance had become a force of nature, and together they charged toward Igor's flagship. As they approached, Igor's desperation became palpable. He issued commands to his soldiers, but his forces were wavering. The loyalty that had once bound them to tyranny was fraying in the face of unity. "Stop them," Igor screamed, but it was too late. Xyler and his allies had reached the base of the flagship, pushing through the remaining Caraxian guards with relentless determination. With Targon by his side, Xyler stormed the entrance, aware that the fate of their alliance hung in the balance. They fought through the corridors, tearing down any opposition that stood in their way. Finally, they reached the command center, where Igor stood, fury etched on his face. "You think you can defeat me? You're nothing but a collection of outcasts." Xyler stepped forward, unyielding. "We are more than that. We are a force for freedom, and you will not prevail. This is the end of your reign." With a swift motion, Xyler charged, engaging Igor in a fierce duel. The two exchanged blows, the clash of their weapons resonating through the chamber. Each strike carried the weight of their beliefs, their dreams, and their determination to forge a better future. As the fight raged on, Targan fought off Igor's remaining guards, ensuring Xyler had the space to confront the Caraxian leader directly. "Finish this," he urged, his voice rising above the chaos. In a moment of clarity, Xyler saw the opening he needed. With a powerful strike, he disarmed Igor, sending his weapon clattering to the ground. "It's over, Igor," he declared, his voice firm. Igor, cornered and desperate, sneered. "You think this changes anything? There will always be those who seek power." "Not anymore," Xyler replied, a fire igniting within him. "You've sown fear and oppression, but now we choose hope and unity. This will be a new era." With that, he incapacitated Igor, bringing him to his knees. As the Caraxian leader fell, the tension in the command center dissipated, replaced by a sense of relief. Outside, the tide of battle had turned. The Alliance, bolstered by the courage of the Meraxians, began to push Igor's forces into retreat. Victory was within reach. As the battle came to a close, the Alliance gathered on the battlefield, weary but triumphant. The roar of their victory echoed through the air, a powerful testament to what they had achieved together. Xyler stood with Targan and Zikron, looking out over the gathered crowd. "This victory belongs to all of us," he proclaimed, his voice steady. "Today, we prove that unity is stronger than tyranny." Cheers erupted from the crowd, a wave of hope washing over the battlefield. Together, they had turned the tide, demonstrating the power of cooperation and solidarity. But as the dust began to settle, Xyler knew their work was far from over. They had won a battle, but the journey ahead would require continued vigilance and commitment to the values they had forged together. In the days that followed, they began the process of healing and rebuilding. The Alliance established a council with representatives from each species, ensuring that every voice was heard and valued. They set about addressing the needs of the planets affected by the Caraxian regime, focusing on recovery and collaboration. As Xyler walked through the bustling streets of Meraxis, he felt a profound sense of purpose. Children laughed and played, families reunited, and communities began to thrive once more. The spirit of cooperation was palpable, a testament to their shared resolve. But even amidst the joy, Xyler remained vigilant. The specter of Igor still lingered, a reminder of the fragility of their newfound freedom. He knew they would need to be prepared for any future threats, both from remnants of the Caraxian forces and other potential adversaries. A meeting of the newly formed council convened, bringing together representatives from across the Alliance. Xyler took a deep breath, ready to share his vision for the future. "We have accomplished much in a short time," he began, his gaze sweeping across the diverse assembly. "But we must remain united. Our victory is not merely a moment. It is the foundation of a new era. We must continue to stand together, ensuring that our values of freedom and cooperation are upheld." Elder Silra nodded, her wise eyes twinkling. "Let us forge treaties of mutual aid and support, ensuring that no world feels abandoned. We will share resources, knowledge, and technology, creating a network that binds us together." Zikron added, "And we must maintain a watchful eye for any signs of unrest. Igor may be defeated, but there are always those who seek power at the expense of others." Targan stood, his voice ringing with conviction. "We need to engage with the people of each world. Let them see the benefits of our alliance. Together, we can ensure that the lessons of the past guide our future." As the council deliberated, plans began to take shape for outreach programs, resource sharing, and educational initiatives. Xyler felt a sense of hope blossoming within him. They were building something extraordinary, a legacy of unity that could endure. Weeks turned into months, and the alliance continued to grow stronger. They established trade routes, cultural exchanges, and educational programs, enriching the lives of countless beings across the galaxy. Each success solidified their resolve and deepened their bonds. However, amidst the flourishing alliance, whispers of dissent began to circulate. News from distant planets hinted at pockets of resistance, former Caraxian loyalists who felt abandoned by the new order. They saw Igor's defeat as an opportunity to exploit fear and resentment, trying to turn the tide back in favor of oppression. One evening, as the council gathered to discuss ongoing initiatives, Zikron entered with a grave expression. "I've received reports from several planets about rising unrest. It appears that remnants of Igor's supporters are attempting to rally the disillusioned, spreading propaganda that claims the alliance is just another form of domination." Xyler felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "We can't allow this to fester. If we don't act quickly, we risk losing the trust we've built." Targan leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "We should launch a series of outreach missions to these planets. We need to counter their narrative before it gains traction." Elder Silra nodded thoughtfully. "Agreed. But we must also address the underlying grievances. Many of these worlds suffered immensely under Caraxian rule, and if they feel unheard, they may turn against us." The council debated strategies, realizing that their approach needed to be multifaceted. They decided to deploy teams to the planets facing unrest, combining diplomatic outreach with practical support to address the needs of the local populations. As the missions were organized, Xyler felt a mix of anxiety and determination. They had come so far, but the struggle for true unity was only just beginning. The first mission would take them to the planet of Virexia, a world rich in resources but scarred by years of exploitation. When they arrived, the atmosphere was tense. The streets, once vibrant, felt subdued, as if the shadows of the past loomed heavily over the inhabitants. Xyler and his team set up a meeting in the central square, inviting locals to discuss their concerns openly. As the meeting commenced, a crowd gathered, their faces a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Xyler stepped forward, determined to connect with them. "We are here to listen. The Galactic Alliance for Freedom stands ready to support you, but we need to hear your voices. What do you need from us?" A tall, angular figure stepped forward, his voice sharp and accusatory. "You expect us to trust you? We were promised prosperity before, only to be exploited. How can we be sure this alliance isn't just another facade?" Xyler met his gaze, sincerity in his eyes. "I understand your pain. The scars of oppression run deep, and trust takes time to rebuild. We are not here to impose our will, but to stand beside you as partners. We want to understand how we can help." The crowd murmured, and a woman from the back spoke up, her voice trembling. "We've lost so much. Our resources have been drained, our families torn apart. How can we believe that things will be different this time?" "We want to invest in your future," Targan replied, stepping forward to join Xyler. "We're not here to dictate your path. Instead, we want to provide the tools and resources you need to reclaim your world. Let us help you rebuild." The woman looked thoughtful, and slowly, more people began to voice their concerns. One by one, they shared stories of hardship, loss, and betrayal. As they spoke, Xyler felt the weight of their experiences, realizing just how much work lay ahead. "Let's discuss specific actions we can take," Xyler urged, hoping to steer the conversation towards solutions. "What resources do you need? What can we do together to help restore your home?" As the dialogue continued, the atmosphere began to shift. A sense of solidarity formed as residents started to propose ways to revitalize their agricultural sectors, technology they could share, and programs to help rebuild their communities. In the following weeks, Xyler's team worked tirelessly alongside the people of Virexia, setting up resource-sharing agreements and initiating projects aimed at economic revitalization. They brought in agricultural experts to teach sustainable farming practices and shared advanced technology to help restore the planet's ecosystems. During this time, Xyler formed deep connections with the locals, learning their customs and traditions. He often joined in community events, sharing meals and stories, which slowly broke down the walls of skepticism. He felt the warmth of their acceptance, a glimmer of hope amidst the scars of their past. However, as progress unfolded, Igor's remnants continued to stir dissent. Reports came in of organized protest and rallies aimed at undermining the Alliance's efforts. Frustration bubbled within Xyler, but he remained focused on the mission. One evening, as he reviewed plans for an upcoming cultural festival to celebrate their partnership, Targan entered the room, urgency in his tone. Zikron has intercepted messages from Igor's supporters. They're planning to disrupt the festival, inciting chaos to sway public opinion. Xyler's heart raced. We need to fortify security and ensure the event goes on as planned. This festival is essential for demonstrating our unity. With a swift plan in place, the Alliance mobilized to bolster security while ensuring that the festival remained a celebration of hope and community. As the day approached, excitement filled the air. Colorful banners decorated the streets, and vendors prepared local delicacies. On the day of the festival, the square was filled with laughter, music, and vibrant displays of art from all the planets represented in the Alliance. The people of Phyrexia embraced their guests, showcasing their culture and traditions, a powerful symbol of resilience and unity. As the festivities began, Xyler took to the stage, feeling a surge of pride. Today, we celebrate not just our alliance, but the strength of our shared humanity. Together, we will rise from the ashes of oppression and build a future filled with hope and prosperity. Cheers erupted from the crowd, echoing through the square. But just as the atmosphere reached its peak, a group of dissenters emerged from the shadows, shouting slogans that incited anger and confusion. This alliance is a lie. They're just another form of conquerors. Xyler felt his heart drop as the crowd wavered, uncertainty washing over them. He turned to Targan, who was already moving to address the situation. We need to calm the crowd. We can't let them divide us. Targan stepped forward, raising his voice to counter the dissenters. We are here to celebrate our unity. Don't let fear dictate your actions. Remember the struggles we face together. Xyler joined him, urging the crowd to focus on the positive. This alliance represents hope and collaboration. We cannot allow the shadows of the past to dictate our future. As tension mounted, Xyler locked eyes with a dissenting leader, a defiant figure at the front. You speak of betrayal, but what do you offer instead? More division? More suffering? The dissenters hesitated, their confidence wavering under the weight of Xyler's conviction. Slowly, some in the crowd began to shout back. We stand for unity. We've come too far to turn back now. With that, a collective energy shifted in the square. The festival goers rallied around Xyler and Targan, reinforcing the message of hope. The dissenters, overwhelmed by the tide of support for the Alliance, began to retreat, their voices drowned out by the cheers of the crowd. As the festival continued, the Alliance members and the residents of Phyrexia danced and celebrated, reaffirming their commitment to one another. The atmosphere shifted back to joy, and the night sky lit up with colorful fireworks, symbolizing their triumph over fear. In the weeks that followed, the Alliance focused on strengthening its ties with Phyrexia and other planets facing similar unrest. They engaged in further outreach, listening to the concerns of the citizens and actively involving them in decision-making processes. Xyler felt hopeful as he watched the residents begin to rebuild their lives. They shared stories of their cultures, fostering understanding and camaraderie among the diverse worlds. It became clear that the Alliance was more than a political union. It was a tapestry of shared experiences and aspirations. But as they celebrated their successes, news came from other corners of the galaxy. Reports of unrest began to surface from planets further away worlds where Igor's loyalists were attempting to instigate rebellion and spread fear. Zikron, what's the status of our reconnaissance teams? Xyler asked, concern etching his features. They're actively monitoring communications and reports from the other systems, Zikron replied. But we need to act quickly. If we don't address these movements, we risk losing the progress we've made. Targan interjected. We need to send teams to those planets, similar to what we did with Phyrexia. We have to show them that we're here to support them, not dominate them. Xyler nodded, feeling the weight of leadership pressing down on him. Let's deploy outreach teams immediately. We need to counter the narrative before it spreads. We cannot allow Igor's remnants to reignite fear. As they prepared for their next missions, Xyler gathered his thoughts. Each outreach effort would require not just strategic planning, but genuine engagement. They needed to show that the alliance was about empowerment, not control. As they launched their outreach missions, Xyler felt a renewed sense of purpose. He visited planets facing unrest, learning about their unique cultures and challenges. He listened to their stories, offering support and resources while demonstrating the Alliance's commitment to their well-being. Slowly, the tide began to shift. The message of hope and unity began to resonate, and the Alliance saw tangible improvements. Communities that had once been fractured began to come together, united by shared aspirations for a brighter future. On one particularly challenging mission to the industrial planet of Grithar, Xyler felt the pressure of the stakes as they landed. Grithar had a long history of exploitation, with vast resources being extracted to fuel Igor's war machine. The remnants of Caraxian influence still lingered, and many citizens were distrustful of any outsiders. As Xyler stepped onto the bustling streets, he was struck by the dichotomy of life on Grithar. Factories belched smoke into the air, and the hum of machinery filled the atmosphere. But beneath this industrial facade, the citizens wore expressions of weariness and uncertainty. His team quickly set up a community forum in the central plaza, where they could engage with the locals. Xyler approached the platform, his heart pounding. "We are here to listen to you, to understand your needs and concerns," he began, projecting a calm and reassuring demeanor. "The Galactic Alliance stands ready to support your rebuilding efforts. We want to work together to ensure a better future for Grithar." The crowd shifted restlessly, and a voice from the back called out, "What do you want from us? More exploitation? We've seen enough of that." Xyler took a deep breath, grounding himself. "We want to help you reclaim your world. We are not here to impose our will, but to collaborate. We believe in your strength and resilience, and we want to empower you to lead your own recovery." Another figure stepped forward, a woman with fierce determination in her eyes. "You say that now, but how can we trust you? What guarantees do we have that you won't just take from us, as they did?" Xyler met her gaze directly, his voice steady. "Trust is earned, not given. We are willing to demonstrate our commitment through action. Let us start with a resource-sharing agreement that prioritizes your needs. Together, we can revitalize Grithar and ensure that its wealth benefits its people." After a long pause, the murmurs in the crowd shifted. Conversations began to break out among the citizens, some nodding in agreement while others remained skeptical. Xyler felt a flicker of hope as he saw the potential for connection. As discussions continued, the Alliance team shared information about successful initiatives on other planets, showcasing how collaboration had led to tangible improvements. They emphasized the importance of local leadership, ensuring that the Gritharians would have a central role in the decision-making processes. Gradually, the atmosphere began to shift. The citizens started voicing their concerns, issues about environmental damage, labor rights, and the need for education and healthcare. Xyler listened attentively, taking notes and responding with compassion and respect. "We understand that the scars of the past run deep," he said, "but we can create a new narrative together. If you can share your vision for Grithar's future, we will work to make it a reality." The woman who had first challenged him spoke again, her voice stronger now. "We want to rebuild our planet sustainably. We want our children to inherit a world that thrives, not one that's been ravaged for profit." Xyler smiled, his heart swelling with hope. "Then let's commit to a plan that reflects your values. We can implement sustainable practices, promote education, and ensure that your resources are used for the benefit of your people." After several hours of discussion, a tentative agreement began to form. The Gritharians were willing to engage, and a framework for collaboration emerged. Xyler felt a sense of accomplishment as he witnessed the community's spirit start to reignite. As the days turned into weeks, Xyler and his team worked alongside the Gritharians, implementing the agreed-upon initiatives. They collaborated on educational programs, training locals in sustainable agricultural practices and green technology. Slowly, the streets of Grithar began to fill with hope, laughter, and a renewed sense of purpose. But even as progress blossomed, Xyler was acutely aware of the challenges that still lay ahead. News from other planets continued to report unrest, and the dissenters were becoming more organized. Igor's loyalists were stirring the pot, trying to exploit fears and doubts in the hearts of those who were still healing from past wounds. One night, while reviewing reports in his quarters, Zikron entered, a grave expression on his face. "We've intercepted more messages from Igor's supporters. They're planning a coordinated attack on several Alliance outreach teams. They want to strike fear into the hearts of those who are beginning to trust us." Xyler's heart raced. "We can't let that happen. We need to bolster security for our teams and communicate clearly with the local populations. They must understand that the Alliance stands strong against oppression." Targan entered the room, overhearing the discussion. "I've been speaking with leaders from Grithar and Virexia. They want to help. If we can rally local support, we can create a network of defenders who won't let fear dictate their actions." Xyler nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "Let's mobilize a joint task force. We'll train the locals in defense strategies while emphasizing the importance of solidarity. Together, we can show that we will not be divided." The next day, Xyler held a meeting with representatives from Grithar and Virexia, outlining their strategy. "We need to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. This isn't just about defense, it's about standing united against tyranny." The leaders agreed, and training began in earnest. Xyler watched as locals learned to work together, blending their skills and knowledge with those of the Alliance. It was a powerful sight, a demonstration of resilience and hope. As tensions escalated, the first coordinated attack occurred. Under the cover of night, a group of Igor's supporters attempted to ambush an outreach team on Grithar. But the locals, armed with the skills they had acquired, fought back bravely. Xyler and his team arrived just in time to support their allies, turning the tide of the skirmish. The clash was fierce, but the Gritharians stood their ground, empowered by their newfound solidarity. When the dust settled, they had repelled the attackers, sending a clear message that fear would not conquer them. In the aftermath, Xyler gathered the community to reflect on what had transpired. "This was a test," he said, his voice steady. "You proved that when we stand together, we can overcome any challenge. We will not allow Igor's remnants to break our spirit." Cheers erupted, and the sense of unity only deepened. Xyler realized that they were not just fighting for survival, they were crafting a new identity, one rooted in collaboration and resilience. As the weeks progressed, the Alliance continued to strengthen its ties with other planets facing similar unrest. Each successful outreach mission reinforced the message of unity, and the stories of collaboration spread like wildfire. The narrative began to shift in favor of the Alliance, countering the dissenters' rhetoric. But even amidst this progress, Xyler knew that the threat of Igor's supporters loomed large. They were persistent and dangerous, willing to resort to extreme measures to reclaim their power. As he strategized with his team, he felt the weight of leadership pressing down on him more than ever. One evening, he gathered with Targan and Zikron in a strategy session, discussing their next steps. "We need to anticipate their moves. If we can identify their leaders and disrupt their operations, we can cripple their influence," Xyler suggested. Zikron nodded. "We've received intelligence about a gathering of dissenters planning a major rally. If we can infiltrate that event, we might be able to gather critical information." Targan's eyes gleamed with determination. "I'll lead a team to observe from within. If we can find out who is orchestrating these movements, we can cut off their support." As they planned the operation, Xyler felt a mix of anxiety and hope. They were taking a bold step, but it was necessary. They couldn't allow fear to dictate their actions any longer. The day of the rally arrived, and Targan and his team infiltrated the crowd, blending in with the dissenters. Xyler remained in contact with them, receiving updates as tensions simmered. "Things are heating up," Targan reported through their communication link. "They're inciting anger against the Alliance, claiming that we're here to enslave them. But I see some familiar faces from the old regime loyalists trying to manipulate the narrative." Zyler felt a surge of determination. "Stay focused, Targan. Gather as much information as you can, and be ready to extract if things go south. We can't let them turn this into a violent confrontation." As the rally escalated, Targan reported back with critical intel. "They're planning to incite violence to create chaos and discredit the Alliance. They want to paint us as the oppressors." "Then we need to prepare for a counter-message," Zyler replied. "We'll gather our allies and demonstrate that we stand united against their lies. If they want chaos, we'll show them the power of collaboration." Zyler quickly mobilized teams from Grithar, Phyrexia, and other allied planets, preparing them for a rapid response. They spread the word about the dissenters' true intentions, urging people to come together and stand firm against the manipulation. As Targan and his team moved to extract themselves from the rally, the atmosphere erupted into chaos. Shouts turned to cries, and the once unified crowd began to splinter as dissenters, fueled by fear and anger, incited violence against the Alliance. "Stay close, we need to regroup," Targan urged his team, weaving through the throng of bodies. The air was thick with tension, and the cacophony of shouts rang in their ears. Targan caught sight of a group of loyalists at the center, rallying the dissenters, their intentions clear. "Zyler, we're surrounded. We need backup," Targan shouted into his communicator. "Hold on, reinforcements are on the way," Zyler's voice crackled back, steady and reassuring. "We're mobilizing the locals. They'll stand with you." Just as Targan prepared to make a stand, a wave of Gritharians surged forward, emboldened by their training and sense of unity. They stood shoulder to shoulder with the Alliance team, their eyes filled with resolve. "Together," one of the Gritharians shouted, "we will not let fear win." As the Loyalists attempted to push the crowd into further chaos, the Alliance and the locals formed a barrier, shouting back at the instigators. "We stand united," they cried in unison, a powerful declaration that echoed through the chaos. The Loyalists faltered, taken aback by the collective strength of the crowd. This was not the division they had hoped to exploit. Instead, it was a testament to the bonds that had been forged through struggle and resilience. Just then, Zyler and his team arrived on the scene, their presence a surge of confidence for those standing firm. "We are here for you," Zyler shouted, stepping forward. "Let us show them the true power of unity." With that, the crowd shifted once more, rallying together as one. The Loyalists realized they were outmatched. The message of collaboration and hope had transcended the lies they had attempted to sow. As tensions rose, a sense of calm began to settle in. The Gritharians, bolstered by their newfound strength, began to chant a mantra of solidarity. Together, stronger, united. The Loyalists, seeing the resolve in the eyes of the crowd, hesitated. In that moment, the true power of the Alliance was laid bare. The dissenters had tried to stoke fear, but they had underestimated the spirit of those who had suffered together and emerged stronger. As the rally began to dissipate, the Loyalists turned to retreat, realizing that their attempts to incite violence had failed. Zyler felt a surge of relief wash over him as the crowd transformed from a source of chaos to one of hope and determination. In the aftermath, Zyler stood with Targan and the Gritharians, the adrenaline still coursing through them. "We did it," Targan breathed, his eyes shining with pride. "We stood together and showed them that we will not be divided." Zyler nodded, looking out at the faces of the locals once wary, now filled with a fierce sense of identity and purpose. "This is just the beginning. We've turned the tide today, but we must remain vigilant. The struggle for true unity will continue." In the weeks that followed, the Alliance focused on rebuilding the trust and bonds that had been tested. They continued outreach efforts, strengthening their ties with the planets that had joined their cause. Stories of collaboration and resilience echoed throughout the galaxy, inspiring others to stand up against the remnants of Igor's regime. As the Alliance flourished, Zyler often reflected on their journey. They had faced immense challenges, But through determination and the strength of their unity, they had transformed fear into hope. Each planet that joined their cause added a thread to the intricate tapestry. They were weaving a tapestry that celebrated diversity, cooperation, and the promise of a brighter future. At a ceremonial gathering celebrating their victories, Xyler stood before a crowd of allies and friends, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns. Today, we honor not just our triumphs, but the strength of our unity. Together, we have turned despair into hope, forging a new path forward. Let us remember that our greatest strength lies not in our differences, but in our shared dreams for a better galaxy. Cheers erupted, echoing into the night as the spirit of the Alliance shone brightly. The fight against oppression was not over, but they had ignited a flame of resilience that would guide them through any darkness that lay ahead. And in that moment, under the vast expanse of stars, Xyler felt a profound sense of hope. Together, they would build a future where every voice mattered, where every world could thrive, an alliance forged not just in power, but in the bonds of friendship, understanding, and unwavering unity. As the last echoes of celebration faded into the night, Xyler knew they were just beginning to write a new chapter in the story of their galaxy, one where they would continue to stand together against the shadows of the past, forever committed to their shared vision of peace and collaboration.